With the 1 year one off.
Right.
Yeah.
It's only my third time here,
You're an old vet on the show now, bro.
I'm an OG.
I know, dude. We've been trying to make this happen for probably 6 months now. 4 months at least, I think.
I was going to say, I think we started talking about it before Thanksgiving.
Right.
I feel like that happened. And then I know there was just a weird barrage of scheduling issues. And there was one day I woke up and I'm like, oh, shit, there's no way I'm going to make this.
It happens.
I'm like, thank God Adam's cool, man, because
so-
anybody else would be like, fuck this dude.
I'm so used to it, dude. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. We can do it whenever. It's all good. Here's the thing. I've learned after talking to people who kind of, they get excited and then they start doing podcasting. And whenever I talk to people, the thing that always gets them down the most, well, at least what surprised me was how they get really down because people cancel on them or just the whole scheduling thing, how hard it can be to schedule people.
Totally.
That's just a part of it. I'm just like, yeah, dude, it's really hard.
Yeah, it really is.
I didn't realize. Whenever I first started doing this thing, and you run into the difficulty of scheduling, I was just like, oh fuck, man, this is just maybe it's just me. But then I just accepted it as like this is just how it is. And honestly, it's like that with anything. Even whenever I worked in the corporate space, it's really hard to coordinate schedules. Always has been. So you can't take that shit personal. So
not at all. I started working in digital media sales.
yeah, you're gonna have to adjust that. It's not catching you.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
there we go.
You just don't like hearing your voice.
I think now I'm kind of adjusting to it where it's not a thing. It was almost like hearing a weird echo, but now I'm used to it. So
Okay.
But no, I started working in digital media sales back actually, God, it's coming up on a year. It's almost been, April. I started at this company called Vivial, and great company, great experiences. And it's basically me taking everything I love to do about coaching and applying it to how can I help you be found online?
Yeah.
What pissed me off for the longest time, though, was it was the whole thing of, like you said, with coordinating schedules. Like, I have something that I know is going to help somebody, and I have something that I know is going to actually make an impact, right? Why can't I get you to answer your phone? And I'm like, you asked for this meeting.
Yeah.
Why are you ghosting me?
That's the tough part of sales.
And that's really what it is. It's like, in a way, you have to sell the idea of these people coming onto a podcast and selling themselves and what they have to present and what they have to offer.
Right.
And so I often wonder if there's a little not often wonder. It's just, I guess I realize now more than ever, would be the best way to word it, how much people are kind of nervous about putting themselves out there in one place or another. Because when it comes to the business owners I talk to, I finally started getting very frank with them in the sense of, look, if you don't have to do this. This is kind of like church. You could do this anywhere you want. You don't have to go with me. You don't have to go at all. But you got to do something. You got to do something to get yourself out there, because if you don't market, you're not going to make it.
Right.
And that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
So what are we doing here?
Yeah. Dang. So that's what you're doing now. You're helping people build their brands and get exposure online?
Yeah, it's actually been really nice. Our company just got acquired by another software company called Thrive. And so in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to start learning all those programs that they offer. And there's just so much crossover between the two. I don't think it's going to be a big learning curve, but I mean, there's always a curve somewhere.
Yeah.
And then who knows? I might say, after 2-3 weeks of this, screw this. I'm just going to go do Jiu Jitsu full time. I don't know. I might go back to coaching. Who knows?
Man, the online thing is it's a frustrating one for sure.
It really is.
Yeah, it seems like the benchmark is always moving, and it's this elusive thing that you try to figure out, but it's always evolving. How do you figure it out?
My favorite is when people talk about, like, well, I tried advertising here, but Google and Facebook changed their algorithms. I'm like, dude, you can't even spell algorithm. What are you complaining about? Why?
Yeah.
Like, you could go read up the algorithms and be like, okay, yeah, they changed these little things that make minute changes down the road for you, but you're not doing basic level stuff.
Right.
So, like, if you had that foundation, yes, we can talk about these things. You weren't even there.
You're talking about the details that don't even matter yet.
Yes, you're trying to tell me, like, why Picasso's paintings have an effect on the 20th century in these aspects of life, but you don't know primary colors. That's really what it feels like some days.
That's
I go,
so
yeah,
funny.
tell me more about this thing that you just found out about 10 minutes ago.
So how does one get more exposure?
Well, number of ways. I will always venture to say, at the end of the day, if you want to get your name out there, figure out how to get just to the number one place in Google for the areas you want to be searched in. It's
Mm.
the biggest sandbox. I mean, I could go on and on about this. This is me saying like my idea from what I've seen other people doing. If you can get yourself, hey, podcast in St. Louis or podcast on, fitness, podcast on whatever the topic is or whatever, you have those guests that really are people that you can put yourself out there on. Okay, or whatever the content you're trying to present. Once you nail that down to something that you could search in a few words, try to get that up there. Or if you go the social route, just get a bunch of people to share your shit. It's like
Yeah.
I hate saying it that way. That there's a number of ways you can go about doing that, but if you can get people to just share
Yeah.
that engagement somehow, some way, whether you're number one on Google and people are clicking on you daily, they're engaging that way.
Classic word of mouth.
Exactly. One way or another, word of mouth is going to happen, and whether it's on your Google reviews, or your Facebook page, or your Insta, or people are streaming on Spotify, you got to get them to see and engage somehow. They have to buy in somehow with either their time or their finance. And once you have that, then yeah, that's how it snowballs from there.
Yeah. So you're saying that it helps to like kind of whenever somebody's searching for whatever it is, and if they're searching for the thing that's related to you, you're trying to make sure that when they search that thing, you come up.
Yeah. So like, for example, if I'm working with like contractors, if I got a guy who's a roofer or a siding specialist, hail damage repair near me or siding repair near me, things like that. I want to make sure that I'm giving them the best shot they got to get further and further up those rankings until, hey, I'm not going to say getting number one or even on the first page is going to get you a job, but you're statistically more likely than the guys on page 3 to 12 or whatever is beyond that.
Yeah.
Because you get to a certain point where, we all know, and I'm guilty of it too. Sometimes I very rarely will go to page 2, 3, 4 of Google.
Yeah.
It's like if I can't find it in the first couple searches, I'm like, I'm just not searching right. I got to figure out a better way to search.
Better search.
All right, I'll use these words instead. Screw it. This is close enough. And I go that way. And I'm guilty, and I know how this stuff works.
We all do that.
Of course.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So how the hell did you get on page 1?
Just pay me a lot of money.
Just pay you?
Just copious amounts of cash.
And then you do all the back end work?
Yeah, so the company does a lot of stuff with like the SEO side where, we're trying to relink you back on other websites, make sure phrases are showing up higher and higher in the rankings so it's easier to be found. But yeah, I mean, after a while, I still come down to once you at least have that built up, and even if you don't, you just got to have something that people want to engage with.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have blue sunglasses. And if nobody gives a shit about blue sunglasses, you could be number one on Google and still not. Yeah. You still go broke.
So you focus on Google optimization?
I do a lot of Google work. Yeah, that's where I found. But again, most of the people I work with in the media side of things are contractors, service people who, especially like in the Midwest, if you have some kind of construction or some kind of contract service-based industry, trying to get you the best shake at getting jobs, either in paid searches, like media buys, like I'm trying to get you in the Google ad section, something up there. That's a really good way to do it just for like short term. Hey, let's just get the business rolling, get the phone rolling. But then after a while, it's like, now let's try to get like people to say, hey, I used Adam's services before. Let me give him a 5-star review because he really knocked it out of the park for me. Things like that. Then it's like now you have that engagement I was talking about. Once you can get that going, that helps a ton because those become your new word of mouth.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that, oh, yeah, I had this guy. He has a great podcast. Damn, I can't think of the show, but I don't know. I'll text it to you. And then people forget about that. And then until you say, oh, wait, I found this because so-and-so told me about it. Well, what do they do? Let me go check this guy out here for a second.
Yeah.
So they Google, outside perspective. Oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. Oh, my God, he had Dave Whitley on one time. Oh, my God, he had all these guys, That's and now it's like that digital word of mouth is more prevalent than ever. Like it spreads faster. You could share it quickly.
Yeah.
How many times do you do the whole click, share now, copy, paste, send?
Yeah.
It's way faster than, hold on, let me call the guy. Or, let me see if I can text you a picture of his business card. Unless you have like a whole photo album of that shit saved. It's just very cumbersome.
Yeah, yeah. How long do you think it takes for advertising to begin working?
Depending on how you go about it, I would say you should really start to see some effect. And again, depending on if you're just like buying like ad space or whatever, or if you're really trying to build up a long-term presence. If you're doing like the Google AdWords and stuff, you could probably see something in the first probably 3 months.
3 months, yeah, usually 90 days.
Yeah, I was going to say 90 days, you should have a fair shake at it because the first month they're going to be figuring out what's going on, like how are you being found, what's working. The second month, they're taking that data from month 1 and they're fine tuning it. By month 3, you normally have a good system coming in where you should be getting leads, referrals, calls, jobs, sales, to where you can start to say, all right, now we can kind of tweak and we've got the machine going the way we want it to.
Yeah.
If you go more long-term play, I'd say 6 to 12 months. Like SEO stuff. Yeah, you're 4 to 6 months, you start seeing some words rank.
Yeah.
But then after that, like, it just takes time.
Yeah, everything just takes time, right?
Yeah.
Like,
there's no, I mean, just like fitness, there's no magic pill.
Right.
I wish there was, but God, that would make my job easier.
Wouldn't it? Well, if you're in business, I mean, advertising, marketing, PR, whatever, whatever you want to call it all, it's just like an all the time thing.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime you run a campaign, you got to run it for, this is what from my understanding, was like 90 days minimum to start seeing anything. I mean, that's just how long it takes for people to start kind of taking that step from interest into action. Usually at least 90 days. And I would even see that in the fitness industry, right?
I was just thinking the same thing. That's so funny you said that.
Right? People would watch trainers and they'd be curious for a few months, and then finally they'll make that outreach.
I think it's hilarious too, where people and speaking of like media and sharing and how to get some buzz and how to get engagement, it's really funny when you see all the really jacked and in shape fitness professionals and models and whatever on Instagram, and they might not even be great trainers, but damn, they look good for that, like that one video where they're like, curl, pose, look, and buy my shit.
Right.
And people buy their shit because they're like, hey, if I buy my shit, I'm going to look like that guy. And people that actually do this for a living are like, dude, I have been trying to look like that guy for 10 years. And there's a lot of shit you're not willing to do to get to that. Like, that dude made a career of that. But at the same time, it's not like that dude did that in 12 weeks. He didn't do it in 24 weeks. He probably didn't even do it in 52. He might have done it in 104.
Yeah, I mean, when you're seeing people who have gone down that path of fitness, they're usually that person who's, they're usually supplementing with something.
Sure.
But outside of that, even, they're kind of living that life for a long time.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So the person who's just starting today and you don't have all that history, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have all that learned behavior from your muscles. Like, your muscles don't know how to react or respond or do it. Like, you don't have those pathways from your brain to your muscles to use them correctly.
Right.
You're starting in a different place. It's going to take you a while to look like that. And
again, I'll go back to it. You're probably going to take about 3 months to see results. I mean, I've made a name out in this area going back as, God, was it 2014? I went over to Ireland, did that Amazing 12 program. Well, when I brought that back, like, I had a really long time, and I still do it, here and there. I just haven't really pushed it out that often. But you can make a lot of change in 12 weeks. I've seen some amazing transformations, both of my own and other coaches that do that. And 12 weeks can do a lot of good to someone's physique. And if they're already fairly lean, you can get them just absolutely shredded. And you can put on some substantial size too. But if they were to keep going, you would see it go further and further and further. And people, I mean, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to brag on this one, that's probably the fastest I've seen such drastic transformations as anybody that does that system. And so, shout out to Paul McElroy. Hey, that is by far just absolute genius on how he structured that whole thing and how people can replicate it as a coach. But at the same time, like, it's something I have to put in people's head, because if you get a guy who's 400 pounds, 12 weeks, you're not going to look like the Under Armour model. And so you have to frame things very realistically and set some expectations of it. Took you a while to get here. It's going to take you a while to undo that too. Going back to the media side, it took you a while of not advertising to realize what we need to advertise. So we're going to have to do a lot more work because there's other people that caught on before you did. So if you want to get above them, you either going to have to pay a lot of money to do it, or you're going to have to be patient. And maybe both. And nowadays it's probably both.
Yeah, that's true. That's one of the things I had to really come to grips with was that you just have to advertise. It's the one thing I never did. And then, I don't know, probably a few months ago, I'm like, all right, are you serious about business or not? If you are, then you got to do this. So you do it. And, man, it just takes time.
It does. And it's frustrating. And it's the one thing nobody likes to do. I've used it many, many times, and I know you can relate to this. it's I've been very spoiled by jiu-jitsu because it is such a long grinding process to even just move up one stripe. I mean, you're talking you'll fight for 6 months to a year to get one little strip of athletic tape put around your belt. You're like, yeah, that's mine.
Yeah.
And then when you get 3 more, you're like, oh god, this is awesome. And then you get the belt, you're like, I'm not ready. It's really funny how that works.
Yeah, a lot of people do that.
Which, by the way, I think the last time I was here, I think we've both leveled up a belt. So
I think we
congratulations, my man.
Same to you.
I know it's been a bit, but yeah.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. It's all a blur.
Yeah. When did you get the black belt?
In December.
Okay, because I got my brown belt. I think it was November. So it was right about the same time.
There.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, boy.
So we're not too far back. This was a due meeting then.
It was.
It was due to come back and say congrats.
Oh, yeah, it's been a long ride.
How's it feel?
The same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, was the ass whooping on Monday the same as it was Sunday?
Always.
Kind of thing?
It's always the same. Yeah. It feels cool though. It's I don't know. It's just like one of those things. What it has done though is it's taken, I don't know, less, at least for me, it's just cleared up some mental space.
Yeah.
Because it was one of those things that was legitimately like on my mind because, you put in a lot of time. You make sure you're competing. You're doing all these things to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And, but there's all this other shit in life that needs to be done too. So like my son, this was his first year wrestling.
Oh, how'd it go?
Well, he went great. He just did A's. He just did state for the AAU state, took third. For first year, so I'm pretty happy with it, man. I didn't know how well he was gonna like it. He was a little reluctant when we were starting, but man, he really took to it. So it was a cool year, man.
That's nice.
But I was spending a lot of time with him coaching and just being there, and I haven't been rolling as much jiu-jitsu as I was before the season, just because I'm with him and doing stuff like that. So it is nice to not be thinking about like, oh shit, I'm missing practice, or like, oh man, I'm not going to be able to sign up for that tournament, because it's like I'm able to focus on these other things.
Right.
Yeah.
It is nice. I feel like regardless of the belt level, when you finally have that nice balance of family life, professional life, and then your own personal time.
Yeah.
Because like jiu-jitsu does almost always fall in that that personal time, unless it is your job.
Yeah.
And even then, if it is in the professional time, you still make time for you to train, because nobody wants to be the one coach that can't do the shit on the mat.
Right.
So that's always been like my biggest fear, and that's one reason I was laughing. I actually just messed up my shoulder pretty bad Monday, so I'm going to take a couple weeks of not rolling, and I'm going to try and do some light drilling just to keep sharp on some things. But I was laughing my ass off. The long story short is that I have a rowing, like a Concept 2 rower at the house, and I'd been saying, when I really focused on different like rower protocols I've researched over the years and just really fell in love with, I got into some of the best, not just like, good conditioning as far as like, looking good and feeling good, whatever, like, but just overall cardio health. Resting heart rate was the best it's ever been. Body fat was low. Recovery was through the roof because, when your heart's strong, it's circulating good quality, good oxygenized blood all through the body. But then also my conditioning on the mats, my cardio on the mats was just through the roof. And I'm like, man, I really need to focus on that, because I had a lot of fun at that time. It sucks getting on the rower for 25, 40 minutes at a time, but I really need to focus on that. And I'm like, it's really funny how the universe will provide in really hilarious ways. Because I thought, man, I need to do this, get back on the lifting routine. I had just started getting ready for a new lifting program that I got from a coach. And then the shoulder issue happened. I'm like, well, sorry, coach, can't do this program for a few weeks until I figure out, am I torn, whatever. But it just so happens that this is the one range of motion that doesn't bother me.
Feels fine.
And so conveniently, the rower is great now.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's the only damn thing I can do. I guess I have to do the freaking cardio.
Since, sometimes you're just forced to do things.
Yes. And
what's the protocol you're doing?
So I cheated for a while. There was a book years ago by a guy named Dr. Kenneth J called The Cardio Code. And I think he only put out ebooks. He might have a few physical copies out there, but I got the ebook just because it was easier. And there's a lot of research that he talks about, like doing a 2,000 meter row, just best effort you can, tracking the watts on it, using that power output to kind of guide your other progress and your programming. But there's a few systems that he had in there. I was like, man, I'm going to bust that out, and I'm getting ready to do all this Excel graph math and make sure I can just pop in my numbers from each session. And it turns out he realized years ago, that sucks. I'm going to create an app for that. And so there's an app called Row Forge that you just pop in what you want to do, and it Bluetooths it right to the rower.
Okay.
And so I just set it up, boom, and row.
Oh shit, your rower has Bluetooth?
Oh yeah,
Oh, you got a new
I
one.
love that one.
Oh,
It's
okay.
probably my favorite little feature that they have. Any rowers that have like if you look at the little monitor, if it says PM5,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they have the Bluetooth. So this app will work with it.
Nice. I have a concept too, but I don't think mine has Bluetooth capabilities.
It might. Is it here?
It's in my garage.
We'll check it out.
Okay.
Yeah, because if it says PM5, you could use it.
Okay.
And it
Yeah.
is one of those things where if you use this stuff, like it's gonna suck because if you follow the program that they advise you to do, there's
Yeah.
like I think it's 4 sessions a week for 5 or 6 weeks or something like that. But it's just their conditioning protocol,
Uh-huh.
and you can do other baseline tests in the meantime.
Yeah.
But it basically is every one of these conditioning sessions, you just row 5,000 meters,
Okay.
and I'm like, that's 20,000 meters a week.
Yeah.
Like in my head, I went, I've done 10. This is literally double what I used to do. But if you want to build up that aerobic base, that kind of makes sense. And it's not bad. It's like 25, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, I found myself popping on like episodes of like Game of Thrones and shit.
Okay.
Just,
Yep.
or like I'll catch up on podcasts and,
Yeah.
or like audiobooks. And I'm just kind of rowing away. I could put on some comedies or whatever. And it's a little lazy in some cases, but like you're still getting the work done.
Yeah.
And as long as you're doing it, it's like, all right, you can multitask a little bit with this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you're doing cardio like that, it's so repetitive. It doesn't take a
Yeah.
lot of mental energy to do that thing.
Exactly. Now they do have some workouts in there that are very like regimented, and so they'll have stuff where you have to do certain tests that give you baselines that plug into the other numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and then on those ones, it's like, hey, you need to put forth X amount of effort, and to do that, you're like, yeah, I can't. I gotta shut the laptop down. I gotta focus on this one.
Yeah.
Daddy's
I'm
gotta
not,
work.
well, I've also noticed sometimes if I'm, maybe if I am listening to a podcast or
Mhm.
it may, I'll just unconsciously, I won't put the same effort into it. Sometimes like I'll slow down a little bit and say,
I've noticed that
it's
too.
like, nope,
Yeah.
oh, we gotta pick it up. Like you gotta focus on this. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, your body will just start to go into that comfortable pace where
Yep.
where you're moving, but you're not really pushing it enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what I was doing on this one here for that conditioning for that, like I said, I think it's 6 weeks now. I'm thinking about it, but about 3 weeks in, what I found myself doing was I thought that same thing, and I thought, man, I really need to put forth this. So I looked at the app just to see like, is there a certain amount of progress I'm looking to make, or is there
Mhm.
anything I'm looking to track? And ultimately, the answers I got, even like interacting with them on Instagram and sending emails back and forth and hitting up their YouTube channel, was put the mileage in.
Yeah.
Just do the work, and then everything else will like kind of accommodate for it. And hearing from some of the developers of if you just do the shit,
Yeah.
it's going to pay itself off. Plus, if you use this and then jump to the other programs, you're going to have such a base built up that those programs aren't as much of a shock. I was even doing it where like I would go train jiu-jitsu, come home, and then hit my 5,000.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a nice, easy look. I'm already kind of warmed up. Let's just get it done.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of nice and beneficial in that regard.
So it's not about the intensity necessarily. It's just
The conditioning part is just get that part done. Now the other programs, yeah, you have to focus on those.
yeah, but for that one, it's just get the 5,000 in.
Get the 5,000. And I like that they did that too, because there's a lot of people that just don't have a good, like I thought about it from that aspect of if I was a coach, how would I put this in someone's hands to really get them to have the best effort? Well, I would just make them row a fuck ton of meters and just make them row their ass off. How do you make 2,000 feel good? We'll make them row 10.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, because then it's like, oh man, this was hell. Okay, cool. Now you're literally going to row 20% of that. It's not as scary. In fact, I'll put forth way more effort in this because I
Easy.
know it's not as bad as that crap.
Yeah, that's easy.
Absolutely. And so I thought, okay, well, there's a little logic that makes sense in this one. So I've had a lot of fun with Rowforge. I like that everything is very Viking themed too, because the guy's from Denmark, and so he's got he's an old kettlebell instructor from the RKC program. If you heard RKC Strong First guy,
Yep.
he was in the RKC before they split off to do Strong First, and the nickname he carried there was the Dane of Pain, and so he's the guy. Like if you ever heard of like the Viking Warrior conditioning protocol or the snatch protocol, VO2 max snatches,
Uh-huh.
that's all his shit.
Okay.
And so he did a lot of work with the kettlebell in the same regard. But then when he came out and, I think that he wrote a whole book, and I could be wrong on this. I feel like that book was basically his master's project. Like, hey, let me show something on how to get VO2 max training with the kettlebell.
Yeah.
And then since then he's done far more research at like an actual research institute, gotten his doctorate, and went, yeah, that was good, but that's going to be like maybe 85% at best of what you can do on these methods over here.
Mm.
And his logic, it made sense, was, and I'm paraphrasing the shit out of this, so I'm probably going to get spammed later for it, but
It's okay.
Yeah, fuck them. I'm not a researcher.
We're just shooting the shit, man.
I'm a dude in the Midwest who just reads stuff here and there. I don't learn it, but but like it was the kettlebell. The reason people got to be careful with that is because it has the when you're lifting like heavy weights, there's a certain amount of tension you generate to move that weight. Well, if the tension is too much, you actually will restrict blood flow back into the heart. And I'm paraphrasing the shit out of the science exactly, but basically you want something that's very low resistance that you can do repetitively and keep a certain rhythm going over time to get the best training for the heart. And so running, skiing, swimming, if you got like the Versa climber, like from Rocky IV, or like what you always see like the Jiu Jitsu guys doing in their conditioning videos on Instagram or whatever, or the Concept 2 rower, those are the best ways to really do it.
So something you can kind of get in this rhythmic pace.
Yes.
Okay, with not a crazy amount of resistance.
Yeah, very minimal resistance, just something you can kind of keep at a certain amount.
And that's the best for cardio.
Absolutely, yeah, especially if you're trying to build that aerobic base. Now, if you want to go anaerobic where you don't need that, yeah, stuff like HIIT training, your kettlebell complexes, sandbag training, sometimes even jiu-jitsu, because a lot of people hold their breath when they know they shouldn't. Yeah, you're definitely not getting oxygen at that point.
That's true. That's true. I have heard that running just at a very slow, methodical pace is great for building that cardio base.
I've heard that, and then also I've heard some people like knee and back issues pending, like putting the rucksack on and going on like outdoor hikes and stuff. I love going outdoors, and the idea of camping and doing long hikes is awesome. For some reason, the idea of weighting that, it just sounds terrible to me. And I'm normally one of these guys like, yeah, give me the sandbag, I'll do this. But I guess for me, it's one of those, if I go on a hike, I want to enjoy the hike.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like I have to do a workout.
Yeah.
But if I go to train, then I'm going to go train. And so then I don't mind it. But I think that's one of those, like, there's a little bit of a mix of business and pleasure that I just don't feel like screwing with. So
that's funny.
I think that's where my mind goes there.
I can understand that. I don't do a lot of rucking or anything like that, but I did go with a friend. We went on a pretty long hike and we threw on the vests. But my vest isn't very heavy. I think I have it at maybe 15 pounds.
Well, I'm thinking if I get on the rower more, I can lose some of the vest that I put on over the hike. So that's kind of the hope, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but we went on that walk, and I just remember thinking that it didn't feel too overwhelming with the weight. I'm not a fan of the heavy shit, I'm not a fan of doing like a lot of crazy workouts with a vest.
Okay,
personally,
yeah.
But just I am a fan. I noticed whenever I did, I mean it's been a while now, but whenever I was walking, every day with 75 hard, my cardio felt amazing.
Yeah.
And all I was doing is just walking, just low intensity, steady state cardio, right? And you just get so many good benefits. And then, so I really enjoy, doing that type of movement. But then, this is probably, I don't know, a few weeks ago we went on that hike with the vest. And I'm like, man, this feels pretty good. It blew out my calves, dude. My calves were so sore. That was it, though. Just
those
the calves.
weren't calves. Those were steers by the time you were done.
Bro, it was brutal. I don't know. We probably walked for, we walked for about 2.5 hours. So we probably only went a few miles.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
But even still, like, I remember there was a guy. So I mentioned Dave Whitley earlier. Got me thinking of this when you meant talking about like the long endurance stuff.
Yeah.
There's a dude that, if you look at old-time strongman arts, the idea of like taking a piece of steel and like scrolling it into like twisties and curlers and stuff like that and making fun sculptures and shapes out of it, they call that scrolling. One of the best steel scrollers I have ever seen and had the pleasure of meeting is a guy named Eric Vining, and I got real lucky because he's based out of O'Fallon.
Oh, cool.
We're like kind of like North O'Fallon area, somewhere in there. And so it was nice because when we met, there was this like, I could tell he was a little guarded. He's like, "Oh, I'm kind of north of St. Louis," and I went, "Okay, well that could be a number of places."
Yeah,
am I gonna have to take like a weekday trip and?
Yeah, North Howe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, where am I going? Up to like Iowa? Or are we talking Columbia? What are you doing? He goes, "Yeah, you familiar with O'Fallon?" And I'm looking and I'm going, "Dude, I can see the highway to O'Fallon from where I'm at right now." Yes, I know exactly.
So he's in O'Fallon, Missouri, not O'Fallon, Illinois.
Yes, yeah. And so I had a chance to go over and hang out with him, and one of the things that he did for cardio was he'll take like those deadlift straps, and he's got a couple 45-pound plates that he'll just wrap through. They have like a handle to them, and he'll wrap that in, and he'll hold them, and he'll just go with like a farmer's walk, and he'll just walk around his block a couple times.
Nice.
And he's figured out like the block I think around is almost exactly a quarter mile. It's close enough that in his mind when he makes 4 laps he's done a mile. Well, he'll walk a mile with 90 pounds in his hands.
It's crazy.
And I'm like, you know, you don't think that sounds like much when you see him bending all these things and dipping all that. But then you go to do that and you're like, I can do this. And you get about like, you know, to the end of the block. You're like, what the hell is wrong with this guy?
Is it 90 in each hand or is it 90 total?
90 total. So 45
total.
in each
so
hand.
45.
Yeah.
And you said that already. Yeah, you did say
Yeah,
45s. Dude, that's a lot of weight, bro.
That's what I'm saying.
45-pound kettlebell on each. Or
He
sorry,
does
plates.
the
He has
plates,
and
yeah.
he has these handles, right? Either way, a weight.
Yeah, see, I tried doing it with
45 pounds.
kettlebells, and I have like, again, I got the little figure 8 deadlift straps. I'm like, oh, that should be easy. And I got halfway to the end of the, actually, I don't even think I made a quarter of a mile. I think I made an eighth of a mile.
Now, is he resetting his grip in between each lap?
I think sometimes as needed. I haven't seen him do it too much, but I haven't really talked to him in a while.
But either way, he's completing the entirety of the thing,
Yes.
holding it.
Yeah, and he'll probably take a little break here and there, and he'll rest where he needs to, and then he'll pick him right back up and go.
Dude, that's such a simple, awesome thing you could do.
Right.
And it benefits so many areas, right? I mean, grip strength and leg strength are both attributed to longevity, right? I mean,
Yep.
So you're training both of those things.
And you're working your core, you're working your shoulders,
cardio.
the cardio. Don't even begin to forget about the mental aspect of like you're carrying 90 pounds for a fucking mile.
Yeah, you got to kind of just ease that voice that's telling you to drop this shit.
You
Stop.
can put this down now anytime you want.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the cool thing. Like when you think of, you know, what training does in a number of ways, when you really harden yourself, like you do have the ability to just say, I can stop anytime I want. You know, whether it's jiu-jitsu or weights or Wim Hof, like the ice baths, you know, that's a great example I've used. You're not in danger. You're not, I mean, you can literally end this anytime. And even if you are uncomfortable, it's not something that's going to kill you, at least not right away. Like if you stay there all day long, you might have some problems. But unless you're Wim, you know, that dude's just a freak though. So
Yeah, he's something else.
He is something else. I would love to like get a more fixed ice bath kind of set up at the house.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big goal of mine this year.
You know, man, I always say I fucking hate doing cold exposure.
Do you really?
Every time I do it, I always feel good afterwards. I'm like, oh man, I feel so good, and I know the benefits. But in reality, I fucking hate the cold. I hate it.
Yep.
It is the thing that I hate the most. I'd much rather just do heat exposure.
I will say, I also feel like, especially in Missouri, it's probably easier to do that on like a hotter day. Like when you get climates like now, you're like, dude, give me the infrared sauna all day long.
Yeah.
But then in the hot summer, you're like, man, I would kill for like just something to cool me off like right away. And so even if you get that brisk, you step outside and you're like, okay, it's like 900 degrees again.
Yeah, I just prefer sauna. I've noticed for me,
Yeah.
My point of being uncomfortable with the heat is a little bit further than most people's.
Okay, that's fair.
I just enjoy the heat.
I think
the
that's
fucking cold, man. I hate that shit.
That's fair, and I think there's some people you just have to kind of adapt to it, and some people are just probably predispositioned to be one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you like more, like I fry in the sun.
Yeah.
So
I
need to be in the sun more.
I used to try to lean into the cold, dude. I bought a fucking a freezer and I turned it into a cold plunge. Yeah, dude. I used to try. I was taking cold showers all the time.
Didn't work for you, did it?
Well, you know, it's not consistent. So, and then I was just like,
Yeah.
you know what, man? Let me just be honest with myself. I hate this shit.
That's the key right there, though. You had that. I gotta be straight up. Like I don't like this.
And from what I've learned, you can pretty much get the same benefits with heat.
Yeah.
I mean, the cold, whether it's like heat shock proteins or cold shock proteins, they're doing the same thing.
A lot. Yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff that basically complements. You know, one complements the other, and so. You know, do you have to do both? No. Can you do one or the other? I mean, yeah, a lot of things too. And this is what I tell people. I've had people ask me what's better, and my answer is, well, what are you doing now? Nothing. Well, just pick one. Yeah. What diet is better for you? Well, not the one you're currently on. If this is part of the reason why you're here.
Yeah. Like, what are you gonna do every day?
Bingo.
Consistently.
You mentioned 75 hard. I think that's the genius of what that is. Is it forces accountability to build a habit? Because again, it's 75 days straight.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's think about this. I mean, you're starting to get to the point where 75 days, you're just a little shy of 90.
Yeah.
And 90 is a solid 12 weeks.
Yeah, you're talking about that 12-week program. So, yeah, you can do phenomenal
it's
things. It's
really
in 12
not
weeks
much
if you're
different.
consistent.
And I think 75 too. People think 75 and like, well, it's shorter than 12. It's shorter than 90.
2.5 months.
Yeah, it's 2.5 months. I could do this.
Yeah.
But then I love the app too, because if you miss a day, they're like, you know, hey, why'd you screw up?
Yeah.
Like it calls you out immediately on it, and you're like, you know what killed me every time was the damn photos.
Yeah.
I hated that was the part I hated doing.
Really?
And it wasn't like I was self-conscious about it. It was just I would forget to do
It
it.
just wasn't important.
I put zero priority on that.
Yeah.
I put more priority on the books, like reading every day.
Yeah.
And I put more priority on the 2 workouts, one of them being outside no matter what.
Yeah.
Those were the things I knew, like at that time when I did it, I had the hardest struggle with.
Yeah.
And then I also found, and this was, a lot of people said this was kind of counterintuitive, but I'm like, it was just what worked for me. I did better when I wasn't worried about sharing it on social media or texting friends or whatever. And I have no issues with people that do that. For me, as soon as I would do that, I felt like I had to do it over and over, and I felt like I had to do it for people to watch it, and I felt like I didn't have to do it for me. And so it became less about, like, I realized the more I tried to buy into it the way that everybody else was doing it, the less focused I was getting on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became very challenging for me to do. I did finally do it, and I didn't tell a single fucking soul.
Yeah.
that was how I finally had to do it. Just don't tell anybody.
Yeah, do whatever works best for you, right? I know.
Right.
I know the first time that I did it, I did lean into. I started posting about it from the get-go because I wanted the social accountability.
And there's a very real thing, and I absolutely see the benefit of it. Right? That is a thing.
Oh, 100%, dude.
Yeah.
But then there's definitely times where, I think the second time I did it, I posted about it some, but I didn't really go into it with that same mindset that I would the first time, where it's like, all right, I need this social accountability.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, to each their own, bro. To each their own.
That's the thing, and whatever people do to make themselves healthier or make themselves better, whether you do it publicly, whether you do it in private, I honestly think that there's merits of both.
Yeah.
When you're doing stuff privately, one of my favorite challenges to give people is go to the gym at a time you would never go and do your same workout with the same intensity in silence and see if you can do it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that, no, I need to get amped up. I need to have my playlist. I need to have my pre-workout. No, don't. Just go in. Just do that. Don't get jacked up on crazy supplements or crazy caffeine. Don't try to like pump yourself up and slap yourself on the face for like 5 sets of 15 of whatever.
People do that.
Apparently. Because I had to have to talk with them like, dude, calm it down.
I know people get all jacked up on pre-workouts and caffeine and stimulants and sugar and shit.
My favorite thing to tell people is, or actually not favorite, but the one I hear more than I should is when I have to remind people, I would not take pre-workout and then go do something like a jiu-jitsu or cardio. Why would you get your heart rate super jacked up just to get your heart rate super jacked up even more?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, roll one round. I'm going to die. Yeah, you might. Your 200 beats a minute is not a sustainable rate, bro.
Your heart's about to explode, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a horse tranquilizer.
Oh, fuck, dude. Yeah, I don't know why anybody would want to do that, but and a lot of those products are just so full of fillers.
It's all they are, man. Like, you can have 9 cups of coffee and get a lot of the same benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Or a cup of coffee and some beet juice. And, there's a lot of your muscle volumizer right there.
Yeah. I fucking hate beets.
I do too. I do not like them.
It tastes like dirt. There's not too many.
Thank you. It's literally like eating, like, it's not even the grass. It's like you had to shovel a couple layers into your yard and went, I'm just gonna throw this in a blender.
Yeah, dude. There's not too many things I don't like, but beets are up there.
I will say I did find a little solace in with salads and stuff. If you can get like pickled beets,
okay.
I think when it has that little bit of a vinegar kick to it, it's
Kinda
like
take some of that out.
Yeah, you don't taste the dirt as much because then you get the infusion of the other flavors.
Yeah. I just have to throw them in smoothies or something.
I'll do that too.
Yeah.
And then they just look super purple.
I feel like such a negative Nancy right now because you keep first it was cold exposure, then you bring up beets. I'm like, I fucking hate that. I hate that too. I hate everything right now.
Adam, are we gonna be real with yourself here?
I'm just so negative right now.
Yeah.
Hey man, sometimes you're just like that. It's a spectrum.
Everyone goes through phases, especially now. Like we're getting ready to go into spring. I've noticed moods are kind of dipped because it's been winter for way too long in Missouri. And
yeah, but man, I've noticed that our perception as you get older, your perception of time is different, right?
Oh,
so
totally.
The winters just get quicker.
I've noticed that too, and I was having this conversation with my wife not too long ago. I don't know if winter is getting shorter or if we're just more acclimated of dealing with it. That stuff doesn't really bother us as much. But I remember thinking as a kid, I feel like it was cold way more than what it has been. Is this some weird global warming stuff?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? If it is, I know some people are like, well, give me the warmer winter. And then I'm like, well, I know, but what is this screwing up somewhere else, right? And so I have those back and forth all the time. But at the end of the day, it's like, I think it really is just, we also find other shit to do to occupy our time.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it's like, by the time you realize, like, man, I'm kind of tired of winter. Oh, wait, it's spring. Never mind.
Yeah.
It's like the next week it pops up.
Yeah. I think that the fall isn't as cold as it used to be.
Yes, I will give you that.
And I think also some of it is just our perception of the time. So
That's very
you
fair.
you combine the fact that maybe that early part. Whenever I was younger, I used to think of fall as winter. You know,
I can see that, yeah,
'cause-
especially when it's cold.
like late October, November, December, for whatever reason in my mind, that was always kind of like, at least December for sure was winter. Like when it hit December, like that was winter in my mind, even though that's still technically the ending of fall. And then
Yeah.
I think winter starts with like that third week or whatever. Fourth.
Yeah.
So either way, in my mind though, that was how. But now, and maybe it's just because it was colder.
I think
You know
it
what I
is,
mean?
yeah.
But now it's not as cold as
No.
it used to be during that fall. And then, yeah. Also, here's the thing. The world is always shifting and changing and
Yeah.
evolving, and we always act like that things are just supposed to be the same.
I agree.
The weather. We know that the continents are moving. We know this. Like we know that weather is changing. They're just the forces of nature are far beyond our control and understanding.
I would love to have this conversation with a flat earther right now. I don't know why, but if you ever need to make yourself feel better, and I'm again, I can't wait to see flat earthers like.
What's
comment
their
on
argument?
I
know it's flat. and
I've
there's
heard
lizard
so
people.
many of them, but I think my favorite ones are just. I kind of quit paying attention to exactly how they argued it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But if I went through a little phase like probably 3-4 years ago when that was like really becoming a thing,
Yeah.
and if I needed to feel better about myself, I would just go on flat earther groups and be like, what are people doing with their time? And they're sitting there and like you read like 120, 340 comments deep,
Yeah.
and I'm like, cool. I feel way more accomplished now.
Yeah, you know the one point I have heard that does make sense to me,
Uh-oh.
and it's not even how weird does this get? You
Uh-oh.
tell me.
Yeah.
Is that all of the images that we've ever seen
Mm-hmm.
of the Earth? How do we know they're real?
Yeah, I've heard that one, and
That's just really a question.
yeah.
How, I just believe it is. I don't have any reason not to believe.
That is one, like, if you really go down to the idea of, like, well, if you have to dispel a few things here and there, yeah, that is there.
But how do you know?
The ones that get me, though, are, like, and I forget, again, this is where I am terribly uneducated, I find, but, like, who was it that did, like, the geometric analysis of, like, you know, just when you think of, like, how a sundial works, the only way that would work is if,
curvature.
yeah, the only way that would work is if there's a curvature of the Earth and if
Yeah.
it rotates. And so when I see stuff like that, I go, okay, I can give you the photos, debunk that.
Right.
And I'm sure people have.
Yeah.
I just haven't looked.
Yeah, I always try to just kind of suspend my disbelief with
Yeah.
certain things. I'm like, all right, well, because especially, and this was something that I never really thought about until maybe more recently, is it's the whole moon landing. Now, for real, dude. Now, I'm not saying we haven't been to the moon.
Right.
But what I am saying is that the video of us going to the moon, I don't know if that was real. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
maybe we went, and and to either appease the public or to whatever reason, they shot that in a studio, put that on TV, solves that problem as far as optics.
Right.
I'm not saying we didn't go, but I'm saying that video.
I don't know if that
on
video
the
was
moon
where it was said it was.
That's all I'm saying.
That wasn't filmed on set, is what you're saying.
on the moon.
Yeah.
That's what
I'm sorry. It was on set. It wasn't
Yeah.
on site.
So whenever I
yeah.
start going down these rabbit holes of these different strange conspiracies and different things,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, well, that's a good point. Maybe that wasn't filmed here. I don't know.
So
Doesn't mean we didn't go.
Here's a fun question for you. So obviously, when 2020 broke out with COVID, there was a million different conspiracies that were hitting social media and everything.
Uh-huh.
And I find myself doing this thing where, like, every once in a while I get that troll bug that just crawls up in me and go like, I don't know, man. Like, it's a gorgeous day. Kids are great. The house is clean. Birds are chirping. How can I piss off Facebook today? And I don't know why this happens, but like once every 6 months to a year, I get that troll bug and I go, I'm gonna have some fun, just rouse some stuff up. And so I'm almost at the point now. I want to ask, like, what has been your favorite conspiracy, and why do you believe it? and just see what people say, because that would be hilarious to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's been your favorite conspiracy that you've heard in the last couple of years? And you're like, that was a good one. Maybe even if you don't believe it, you're like, well, okay, that one was that was pretty funny.
That was like newer, relevant to the times.
Yeah.
Okay. First, let me preface with this because
I like how this means you put thought into this one.
well, I spend I've gone down some rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And I do spend time questioning things and thinking. I've talked about conspiracies. So first, let's preface with this: that the word conspiracy theory has a lot of negative connotations.
I do agree with you, yes.
And the moment that you say that word, it automatically goes to Bigfoot and aliens, which I've just gone down this huge rabbit hole today watching this shit on the Skinwalker Ranch.
Okay, I was just saying, don't tell me you're in the Bigfoot.
No,
Okay,
not Bigfoot.
We're not going to go hunting Sasquatches
We're
for
not
the
doing
next
that.
Okay, good.
We're definitely not doing that. But like the Skinwalker Ranch and all these different phenomenon. Like, are you familiar with the Skinwalker
No, I'm
Ranch?
not. I don't think
Utah?
I've heard this one.
It's in like northeastern Utah. This ranch has the highest concentration of just different sightings and phenomena and like UFOs and shit like that. Like specifically on this ranch, but in that area in general.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know how much you've kept up with this, but I mean, like the Pentagon has released things about, there are UFOs. We don't know anything about. So I mean, shit's coming to light as far as that's concerned. But what was I saying?
Skinwalker Ranch.
No, Skinwalker Ranch. But I was going somewhere with that because we were talking about
Conspiracy theories.
Conspiracies.
Everyone thinks Bigfoot. Oh, it has a negative connotation?
Oh, negative connotation.
Yeah.
So my point is, these things that sound crazy, like aliens or Bigfoot or Loch Ness Monster or any of these fucking things, sound crazy, but then some things like the aliens start coming to light and say, all right, is it really that fucking crazy?
Right.
So my point is, the word conspiracy theorist was coined by the CIA in 1967 to discredit anybody that went. This is official record.
Yeah, exactly. I think I have seen this one actually.
That went against the official narrative.
Okay.
So every time you say that word, it's always associated with this negative thing. But really, that's by design. Really, all it is, when you think about it, is just obviously it gets crazy because some of those things are fucking stupid. Flat Earth, lizard people. That's just probably pretty stupid. Here's the question, though. Are those stupid things put out there because you're just trying to muddy the waters because you have the people who are critically thinking, asking questions about like JFK?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Where now that we've had all these years just looking at the JFK situation, we're so far removed. There's all this evidence that clearly there was a lot of fuckery going on when that dude was assassinated, right? And cover up and shit like that. So whenever you say conspiracy theory, it's not all crazy. That's the
I can give you that,
right?
Yeah. Well, that's to me kind of what makes it fun too, is because you do hear a lot of stuff out there like, oh my god, that's just a crazy little whatever. But at the end of the day, you still have to kind of look at it and go, well, just suspend a few things for a second and kind of ask the question, but what if?
Yeah, or where is the truth?
Right.
Right? Is there a whole bunch of bullshit with just maybe a little bit of truth in there? You got to parse through the shit, really, and figure out what's valid and what's not. But I would say my favorite, to answer your question, probably the only one I really went deep down was, the whole QAnon shit, where it got really deep. There's a whole bunch of shit with the QAnon. It was all crazy, but it was the whole... just the satanic elites, and the whole taking kids and draining of their blood and trying to get
the adrenochrome and all
the adrenochrome and all that shit. I went down that rabbit hole pretty deep. But here's what's crazy about that is there has to be some truths sprinkled in there. In that, I think there's a lot of record of satanic worship in Hollywood. And like amongst those,
I've heard a lot of
those
that,
groups, there's a lot of record of that shit, and you can find some of these websites about cannibalism and shit. Like, dude, I went to these things. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, there's some truth to them. And then, for example, that whole, you look at elites and secret societies and cults and weird rituals, and there's evidence of those as well. Did you see that video? It was like Bohemian something or other that Alex Jones put out, and it was basically he like snuck into this ritual of these ultra elites doing some weird shit, bro.
No, I hadn't heard this one.
Oh, bro, what? So, yeah, man. So there's evidence of these people doing this weird shit. So you got to kind of parse out what it is and isn't. Obviously, I didn't think that John F. Kennedy Jr. was going to come back and team up with Donald Trump, and they were going to expose a whole bunch of shit and all that,
Yeah.
which was a part of that whole thing. But you start hearing different things in there. I'm like, fuck, is that little nugget true, or is that true? Because you pick out certain things. We do know that elites around the world throughout history have been molesting children for a very long
Yeah.
time. Like that's just see, that's the thing.
Like the whole
That's
what's
been
his name, Epstein and Giselle
yeah,
Maxwell, like that.
that fucked up behavior has been going on longer than not.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We're in a place now where we're in society, and as a whole, we've all come to this collective agreement like, hey, you don't do that. That's not
Right.
okay, right? But when you look at the longevity of history,
Yep.
that's been going on. That's the majority. Even here in America, it wasn't that long ago that 13-year-olds were getting married and having kids with grown-up men.
Yeah, that was fucked up.
Very recent.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Like we're talking like what, like last 30 years? Not even.
Well, I was in my
I could be
mind.
wrong,
I'm
yeah.
in my mind more prevalent. I would say with let's just say 100 years.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that's still way too
late 1800s, early 1900s for sure. Right, that
Yeah.
was probably still happening. Right, in early 1900s for sure.
Yeah.
Call it 100 years. Let's say, dude, that's so we're in a place that's much smaller as far as human behavior. So you look at all this fucked up shit. I'm like, man.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing too is that I've always been one of these people where I've reserved the right to change my opinion based on new information, and
100%.
and we have, I mean, information supercomputers at our fingertips and phones, and I was reaching for it, and I think I just knocked my coat off, but
Because you got someone calling you, Mike.
yeah, I was kicking over. I was like, go away. But like, we have supercomputers in our hands by all metrics of what we've known in technology. I mean, the iPhone is not that old.
Right.
And that's what messes me up
And it
sometimes.
got here like that.
Yes, and it blew up. And then, like, look at every advancement since. And everyone, I love it whenever Android users are like, well, iPhones are basically the same thing over and over. Well, okay, like, all phones are the same shit over and over. It's just what new camera, what new app, what new
Yeah.
feature you have that makes people go to you.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, the tech is not really that old. But it blew up so fast that now you had to stay relevant with it. And you had to stay calm with it. And so, I forgot kind of where I was going with that whole thing. But like the idea of, it's just certain things not being around as long as what you think they have been. Like that's it is crazy when you think like iPhones are not that old.
Yeah.
And then the fact that some of this shit was even as young as 100 years ago.
Yeah, dude. So
Like that's what 2 generations, not even.
dude, not even.
That's
yeah,
like
a
one and a
couple-
half people
Yeah,
ago.
which that's what fucks me up, right? Because it's a serious issue.
Uh-huh.
How do we address this serious issue that has been happening longer than not?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's like fuck, dude. What do you do?
Right.
So then you start looking at these elites and shit like that. You start hearing all these stories about Hollywood and what they do to these young actors.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Taking advantage of them. And you look at the number of young actors who fucking go crazy and just, you know what I'm saying? And
Oh,
you
yeah.
hear all these stories and shit, and it's like, man, I know I heard it through a conspiracy theory, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So that's probably the most one that. What about you?
For me, that's a good one. I almost had another story I was thinking of, but then I was like, man, I don't know if this would go into another conspiracy thing.
Talk about
or-
whatever you want, buddy. I went deep down this hole if you haven't.
Yeah,
you can't
no.
tell.
The only one that really jumped out at me is one that really kind of, and this was one that was more of a, I wasn't really sure if I actually wanted it to be true or not.
Yeah.
Was the whole idea that the COVID vaccine was just a bunch of nanobots that they were going to use to track and control you. And I thought, okay, guys, I've seen G.I. Joe and I saw how this shit goes.
Yeah.
Let me see this work. Because in my head, I'm like, if you have nanobots that you're going to put into somebody's blood or whatever and have all the, like, I saw how Cobra did it, man. Like, you could regenerate a dude real quick on this stuff.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Is Elon up on this one? Because we're talking like the Neuralink thing that he has going on or whatever.
Right.
So, in my head, I'm like, I don't know. If we're going to start getting into like biotech and enhanced humans and stuff, there's a part of me that's like, I wouldn't mind seeing it because like the sci-fi nerd in me is like, that'd be kind of cool. But then the other side of me is like, well, that's kind of horrifying. That's
Right.
like permanently modding someone for whatever to be a cyborg kind of thing.
That's some next level shit.
Yeah, that one kind of messed with me for a little while there, but it was more of I was more amazed at how many people were just throwing shade at something that you could tell they definitely did not look at. They were any media soundbite they could find, that's what they were going to jump on. And they were just regurgitating the same stuff over and over. I'm like, I don't know if like people have actually read medical journals. Like I did a bunch when I was doing fitness stuff here and there. And I still, every once in a while, I'll pick up something for like, new research that shows how this kind of supplementation helps with XYZ in athletics. Like I'll still check things out here and there. I don't read those nearly as much, but anybody who's ever read those, they are boring articles. They are not exciting or sexy by any stretch of the imagination. And so when people are like, oh, yeah, I've read the medical research, it's very interesting. No, the shit's typically not, unless you really are a science geek, that is not interesting stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess
yeah.
it kind of is at the end of the day, but it's like, it's not exciting, right?
Right.
You have to be excited about the topic for that boring stuff to make sense.
Yeah. Well, and I guess what are you reading and who's saying it?
Right. And that's the thing, like, oh, like asking me like where I'm reading
No,
from.
I'm just saying.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
in
yeah.
general, like, whoever you're talking to.
Well, and then the problem is, like, you read one medical thing, and then someone's like, well, I'm going to discredit because of this, and who paid for that? And then there's always a means to discredit it. And I thought, are you, like, actually reading this, or are you just, like, one of those people that perpetually has to put it down because you don't think it agrees with you from the get-go?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not true science. Because true science doesn't give a shit if you agree with it or not. True science is like, it's like math. The numbers equal.
The last couple years have been an interesting time in that there's been a lot of theories going around, a lot of what. So in COVID specifically, it's like, well, where did it come from? How did it start?
Yeah.
There's a lot of conversations that were had, especially in the beginning, that like you couldn't say things. Like you still can't really talk about nuance and different things, right? And in the beginning, one of the big ones was, well, where did it come from? And if you said it came from a lab, then you're fucking talking conspiracy theory, and you couldn't even say that. And some people, if you posted that on social media, it got flagged and taken down, or people were losing accounts and shit. And now it's well known it came from a lab. Right? So, man, especially in relevant times, how much of what's going around is just to try to just discredit and muddy the waters because you can't have any sort of nuanced fucking conversation. Yeah, I don't know if there were nanobots in the COVID thing, but
I dig like the kid in me who was the sci-fi kid who saw the first G.I. Joe movie where I was watching that shit happen there. I'm like,
yes,
oh, come on, bring it.
But could it be biological warfare?
I mean,
that seems like a feasible.
There's a lot of things that could be like botulism could be biologically used for warfare if you really wanted it to.
Yeah.
And so it would be very, very it'd be a very interesting thing.
Well, the thing
anthrax was.
Well, the thing with COVID was, I mean, we know that there was gain of function research happening, right? There are emails confirming that. I'm pretty sure, correct?
I think so.
Right?
I will admit I am very terrible about keeping up on a lot of that because I very much did the typical American thing of like I just buckled down and kind of got into my little bubble, and I kind of paid attention to what I needed to do to be relevant in some things. But
everything seems so relevant, though.
Well, my issue was that everything was so relevant that I went to the route of if everything's relevant, then nothing's relevant. Like and I don't know why my brain jumped to that. It was almost like a priority thing. If everything's important, then nothing's important.
Yeah.
And so I got really irritated with the fact of I couldn't find clear information without hearing 90 minutes of arguing to get to the point that I wanted to hear.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. You're never going to get clear information without sifting through
it. And that's the one thing I think I find most frustrating is I feel like we used to have, and maybe we didn't, and it's just now more easily known or more widely known how difficult it is to find clear information. But I feel like the problem that we all run into is that there's not really any one source of truth anymore.
Well, even then, when there was one source of truth, was it really the source of truth?
That exactly, and
so
that's what I'm saying. Like, I have a hard time saying like, was it always there, or did we just have something that we just universally majority agreed? Yeah, we can count on that as something factual.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, when we only had a limited source of information, we just believed. Although, I mean, I like to believe that back in the day, journalists had more integrity. It wasn't all just about clickbait. You know what I mean? They really tried to go find the real story.
I think I will agree with you there because, I mean, how many times you see something even in sports, where they'll have like something with some headline article. I'm good.
Okay.
I'll see some stuff on like some kind of headline thing here and there about like this athlete did XYZ. And then as you read the article, they're like, well, they kind of did, but it wasn't nearly as big as that article kind of made it seem. Dude, and so everything is just blown out of proportion. Just see it click, 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 share, click, share, click, share. Like, love, shock, laugh, angry face. You know,
Yeah.
we just want engagement.
Yeah, really, that's it. That's it. And there's a lot of contradictions and shit.
Very much so.
And even flat out lies in the media. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Just to say whatever is either going with a narrative or just whatever. Well, you'll see contradictions because I was just watching this Rogan podcast. I wish I could think of the guy's name. It's a tough one.
Was this the one? Hold on. What was it that he got on people for? It was something about. Was it like CNN saying something about how he approached like COVID with ivermectin and all that?
That was something he talked about.
There was a guy I feel like he called out like on the show and went, yeah, but you guys could have retracted that and updated and you didn't. And
with CNN.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is just. I'm just trying to find a couple of his recent. He has a recent guest. I watch it. I usually listen to it on my phone, so my phone's recording. I'm just trying to
double duty here.
I'm just trying to get this guy's name real quick.
You're good.
His name is Majid Nawaz.
Okay.
He says he's a former Islamist turned counter-extreme activist and author of multiple books on public speaking. But he's from the UK. He was an Islamist terrorist, except the way they went about it was not about violence. They would infiltrate high levels of government and they would flip people. And
okay,
so,
I can see that.
And he's basically telling his story and shit like that. And he pulled up a couple articles, and he was talking because he's talking about media, and because at one point in time he was listed on two different lists by these two different organizations. One as like an anti-Islamic hate, like a hate group or like, hate, and then also as an Islamic terrorist, like two counterpoints. He was listed on both of these things, and he also pointed out so exactly just the contradictions.
That's like saying you're like a hard left and a hard right at the same time.
Exactly, he sued both of them.
So you're not hard red, you're not hard blue, you're really just a purple.
And he's neither. And he also he showed this article on there about how they wrote it was this article that was written about this guy saying. I'm fucking up the details, but they were saying like he's anti-vax. Something happened to him, something or other, and then you read the article, and he actually has had 2 doses of the vaccine. So
interesting.
In the headline, they call him anti-vax. It was like a scare article, like anti-vax, blah blah blah, and then it turns out he actually had. So it was like this contradiction even within the same article.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So you see this fuckery is the whole point.
Very much so.
That's a really good conversation, actually. This Majid Nawaz.
Dude, I will have to check that out.
Fascinating human.
I've actually found like some of my favorite podcasts from from the Joe Rogan Experience is like the ones where they're people that you don't really expect to have a relevant topic. One of my favorite ones of all time, and I think this is several years ago now. He had that guy. I think his name is Dr. Matthew Walker or Welker, one of the two. But he was talking about like sleep studies, and I'm like, I did not expect to get really into that one. But when you hear like, you know, what happens when your sleep cycle is jacked up and what jacks up, you're like, oh my god, I'd want to like change my life right now.
Yeah. Dude, he has so many good experts.
He's got a really good series of people on there, even talking. What's the doctor that shows up a lot on the show? The one lady.
Rhonda Patrick.
That's the one, yeah. As soon as you said Rhonda, I'm like, that's the one.
Yeah.
Dude, she is on point. I actually got back on Twitter just to follow her and start, like, when I talk about those research journals and stuff, I'll follow her stuff quite often.
Yeah. It's just funny to me that a lot of the controversy surrounding him at the moment is the people who are mad have never even listened to Joe Rogan.
Right.
And every single person who actually knows Joe Rogan has come out and is like, hey, you guys are talking shit.
Yeah.
Hey, what are you talking? And granted, I don't know, did you see the clips and stuff that were kind of going around about
I've seen a few of them, yeah. They're not like
did
exactly
you see the
most
one
savory.
Did you see the one where he made like the Planet of the Apes joke?
Yeah.
That was bad.
That one was not as
that was fucked up.
It was fucked up because like I remember thinking to myself like, I mean, if you take the stuff out of context here and there, and then someone showed me that clip and just mid-sentence I went, if you take it out of oh, that's not good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will
you
say
immediately go, oh, man,
yeah.
I lost my argument. Never mind.
Dude,
I'm sorry.
Well, I've listened to a lot of his conversations, and I will say that I think that every time he said nigger, and that I think those were all taken out of context. And I do think that he was always assuming that he would never be taken out of context, which is why after 12 years of podcasting, it's never come up until right now, right?
Right. Well, he's bigger than ever now, too.
Well, and also it evolved with him having Robert Malone and Peter McCullough on both doctors, and
Mm-hmm.
they go against the popular narrative as far as vaccines and COVID and
Yeah.
everything. Both of those guys, I think, have the vaccine, by the way.
Right.
So it's
Which is funny.
so, and then it went from that to him being a racist. So
Yeah.
in my mind, that's kind of clearly an orchestrated thing. Now, I'm saying that to say this. That's why I think all this is coming up now.
Yeah.
Now, I do believe that whenever he was saying nigger, like that was taken out of context. The Planet of the Apes joke, that was just fucking bad.
That was
And
bad.
regardless, I know some people are of the opinion that if you're not black, like you should never say that word. Some people, like there's a lot of people
I
of
can
that
see that.
opinion, and that's it's very like accepted, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna discredit anybody's view on the word. So here's the thing. He did like he's like, oh man, he's like, man, I saw that was really bad, and
Yeah.
he owned it and he apologized, and every single person who actually knows him knows his character and has
Yeah.
always stood by him. So it's kind of like one of those things to where, how did we get down this tangent? I had an original point and I fucking lost it. Oh, we are just talking about Rogan and
Yeah.
yeah. My point is, so I've just I mean, he has a lot of good guests, and I think he puts a lot of good information out, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think he does a lot more good than like the shit that's kind of out right now, kind of surrounding him, which is why the people who actually know him support him. I think
Yeah,
that's kind of my main point.
No, for sure. And actually, it brings up another interesting point, too. And this is something my wife and I were just talking about probably this week sometime.
Yeah.
It was this week or last week. But the issue that I have with a lot of stuff that surrounds him is if we will let criminals be released back into society after serving their time, they've done their time. They've made their amends. They're now officially, I mean, assuming that they don't, break any more laws, they're now a law-abiding citizen, okay? Past is past. At what point do we let the past be something that we learn from rather than we have to, like, just keep hanging it over their head? Like, when do you let, like, Joe, okay, you made a bad joke. He might not have meant it to be a certain way. He may have meant it a certain way. He legit looks back at it and went, yeah, that was fucked up on my end. I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
When do we let the man learn from a mistake and move on with life? Like,
yeah.
it's very ironic to me. The people that are so adamant about, like, you need to let people learn and grow and be better are the same ones that will, like, just for all intent and purposes, just nail you to whatever cross they find relevant at the time to make them feel better just so that you don't. And that's where I struggle. It's like that whole idea of cancel culture. Like, okay, he fucked up. Like, who hasn't? I mean, did we forget about a president that literally said, grab him by the pussy? I mean, is that no longer a thing because Rogan is the new bad guy in our story?
Yeah, man.
It's a messed up phenomenon.
Dude, no one's perfect.
Right. We're human beings.
It's this idea that you're always supposed to be professional. I hate that idea. Who's professional all the time?
Well, and what does professionalism really mean at the end of the day?
Yes.
Like, if you start on time and end on time, if you do your job when you're on the clock, I mean, what do we need to have when he does the world's largest podcast right now?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fair statement, right? He has the world's most listened to podcast. I think is probably a fair assessment.
I think so. Yeah, man.
I think so.
I mean, his viewership is bigger than all of traditional media.
He reminded me that Neil Young was still alive. I mean, that's how big he was. I'm like, I legit thought we lost that dude.
Right.
And then it's like, I'm pulling my stuff up, and I
Yeah.
went, two things. One, he's alive. Two, he knows what Spotify is. I am really messed up by this, oddly enough.
Mind you, his music is still on Spotify.
Well, exactly. And I think if I read it right, it's not like his entire catalog. I think it's stuff that's like on movie soundtracks or collaborations that I guess he might. I don't know if it's like a rights to the music thing or whatever like company had the rights to put that up there.
I think he pulled his music and put it back on.
I'd be curious because I've heard two different things. I've heard one, double check.
Let's find out, dude.
Yeah, let's
Shit.
find. Yeah, we got the Google machine right there.
know,
We can
baby.
find. We got all the answers right there.
I'm not as good as if I had like somebody doing it for me.
You need a Jamie.
Well, yeah, because and here's the beauty of that,
That's
right?
your next level.
Because you and I would still be able to continue the conversation while somebody else is doing this. And
Yeah.
now I have to stop and put my brain on this while also talking. So
It's multitasking.
it changes the conversation.
This is where ADD kids thrive. I will say like that is I think like the ultimate level of podcasting is if you look at Joe Rogan's model and everything.
Yeah.
When you can afford a Jamie,
Mm-hmm.
you're good. You started making it.
You just, or somebody who wants to just voluntarily be
That's
your
basically
Jamie.
what it is.
He just wants to put in the time.
Jamie, look that up.
Look it up. Hey, can you look it up, Jamie?
My favorite is whenever you look it up and Joe will get an answer. He's like, is that really accurate? Like he'll start questioning it. It's like, Joe, I just did the thing you asked me to do.
Yeah. He's
Throw this on real quick
Jamie's
here.
the best. You know, I always because he always called him young Jamie. You about to leave me, bro? Or are you
No,
just
I'm
cold?
just a little chilly there.
Ireland.
Yeah, I got this for. God, did I get this for Christmas? I think I got this for Christmas. Yeah. And then I realized with my little Rascals Paperboy hat here, I'm like, could I get any more Irish right now? I mean, shout out to Danny O'Connor,
Shout out to Danny O'Connor.
Johnny Irish himself. He's probably gonna see this show and be like, "You're not nearly as Irish as me," and I'll be like, "I'm not gonna fight you for it, dude."
Neil Young couldn't remove his music from Spotify on his own. Here's why. Spotify removed. It says Al. I wonder if it's supposed to be all. All of Neil Young's songs at his request this week after the musician demanded the platform choose between keeping his music or Joe Rogan. See, now this was on January the 27th, though.
Yeah,
See, that's like a month old. I need something more
that might be as far as it went.
recent. Yeah. Spotify didn't need to.
I look at it this way:
January.
at the
And
end
then
of the day,
everybody wrote about it for 2 days, and then nobody wrote about it.
I was just
ever
gonna say the
again.
same thing. Everybody wrote about it. It was a big buzz thing.
I'm done talking about it then.
He pulled it and then put it back up. But I'm like, at the end of the day,
Who gives a shit?
Neil probably had a nice little boost in streams
listens,
and
yeah,
downloads
he
and
just got
listens
paid.
that he didn't have. And so even if Spotify is only paying 0.03 cents for every stream, I'm sure he made a couple grand.
Good for him.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? If you found your way to be relevant for another 15 minutes,
Yeah, I don't give a shit.
go do your tours, fire up a book.
Yeah.
Me versus Rogan, a
That's
tale
so
of how
funny.
I fought Spotify and won.
Yeah, man.
See, I've even given him the title.
Yeah, so
It's like a 10% royalty.
So this is my plan. I'm going to share my long-term plan with you
Do it.
and everybody else who's listening. Like there's only 10 people.
I was gonna say 12 of us, but
That's it. And I'm just going to continue to do this.
mm-hmm.
I'm 30. I'm 34 now. I'm going to continue to do this for the next 10 years,
Okay.
maybe 15.
Okay.
And by that time, surely I'll have to be somewhere near the Rogan range because I'll be like in my 50s. I'll
44.
I'll have done this. Well, if I do it for 15 years.
Oh, 15. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You did say that.
Yeah, I'll be close. But yeah, but at 10 years, 44.
Yeah.
I'll be mid 40s, but 15 be like closer to 50, be 49. I'll have met some really interesting people, and hopefully some of those people that I meet now early on will go on to do some epic shit. And it's like, I've known this guy for 30 years.
I got the podcast when he talked about doing that.
Exactly.
I got the documentation here. Check out episode number 12
I just
of the
got to
Outside
become
Perspective podcast.
50. All the most interesting people out right now are like in their 50s.
Yeah. I funny enough, not too long ago, when we set on this day to because we were scheduled like what 2-3 times I think.
Yeah.
So it was the last time when we finally coordinated this. I literally went to YouTube and looked up Outside Perspective. Just I'm like, what is Adam been talking about? And for whatever reason, I think it's just because of like my YouTube history and how things I've searched for, what pops up, and was like, hey, you might like this. Like the third or fourth one down was my buddy Dave Whitley when you did that show with him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let me go back and listen to this because like it's always funny to hear guys that I've like first off that I know, and then also have like literally mentored and coached under. And so like, Dave was a good mentor and friend of mine and still is. And so it was very interesting hearing what he was talking about then. And I'm like, it's always interesting to hear like what's changed. Has he evolved much? And yeah, there's definitely some things that I can tell he's evolved. But man, that guy is pretty much true and authentic to himself 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And so like he found his path, he carved that, and he is like right on that one.
Yeah.
And so like
Dave's
when you
great.
talk about guys that are like, hey, I can't wait to hear what they take off to. It's like guys like that. I'm like, man, where would he be in 10 years? That'd be my next fun thing.
Dude, he's great.
He really is.
Yeah. We hugged probably 8 times.
Yeah. It's like a bear.
I'm just like, dude, all right.
So this is a fun thing too. At all the kettlebell workshops, they do this drill where they talk about like irradiating tension for strength.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll make you crush like a tennis ball or a water bottle that's half full, and then like you'll press a bell that's like close to your max, but you're already fatigued, so it's probably actually your max now. And people get like maybe 1-2 reps out of it, and then they'll irradiate this tension from one side, and they'll get like 3, 4, 5, or they'll press a new belt that they've never pressed before. one of the drills they do is they make you shake someone's hand
Yeah.
while you press. And Dave, to this day, is the one person that I know nobody will fucking grip his hand because he'll just crush you.
As he's pressing.
And no, just as he's gripping your hand,
Yeah.
he will just crush your damn hand.
Right. Fuck. Yeah.
And I've met some pretty strong dudes that are really good at bending and stuff. And he's
Yeah.
like,
He
all right,
bends.
I need somebody to do the handshake, not you. And he's like, what?
He needs to grip like a 2x4.
Yeah, I think he probably does. And he by the time he's done, it's just toothpicks.
Yeah. That's so funny. He's a strong human.
He is a very strong human, and he's got a stronger heart for what he does and how he wants to help people be better. And that's one thing I've always gravitated to that dude for.
Yeah. Yeah. I need to drive down there and see him.
Fuck it. Let me know when you go. I'll go. We'll knock on his door. Hey, Dave, let's swing some shit. Let's
What
jump
are you
in.
doing? He's just been living the dad life.
Dude, he's really been enjoying that. I know he's still been doing some strongman shows, and I've seen some stuff recently. He's been posting a little bit more too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he's starting to fire up some. Like I saw he posted his how to rip a deck of cars.com. He was sharing that the other day.
Yep. I remember. He sent. I got to see that before he released it.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah, it was fun. I might have been one of the beta people like yourself, because actually that would have been right about that time, I think, when you interviewed him.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. So look at this. All right, I'm coming back with some shit we were just talking about. Alex Jones put this out. It's called Bohemian Grove,
Oh, here we
dude.
go. Man, I'll tell you what, Alex Jones is one of those dudes. You know how like sometimes you can watch a podcast and you can
I'm trying to. I don't want to go through this whole fucking
No, you're good.
long ass thing.
but like sometimes when you can watch a podcast or like listen to something and you speed it up like 1.2, 1.25 or 1.5
Yeah,
just to kind of get through faster. He's the only person I've ever had to slow down.
because he speaks
He's
like a
so
fucking,
fast.
speaks like a goddamn madman. Yeah,
I cannot follow him. I'm so glad. Like whenever he was on Rogan a couple times, Rogan was like, Alex, you got to calm down. People can't follow that fast. I'm like, thank God.
Yeah.
The guy who runs on it, which is all geared around human performance, like humans don't perform at this level, Alex. You're on some next level stuff. You got to dial it back a notch.
Yeah, he says some crazy shit, dude.
So what are we watching here?
So I'm gonna read this. So this says the Bohemian Club, an elite, invitation-only social club founded in San Francisco in 1872 by a group of male artists, writers, actors, lawyers, and journalists, all of means and interested in arts and culture. Since its founding, the club has expanded to include politicians and affluent businessmen. What's this say? Oh, this is the whole fucking...
Oh, here's the whole article here.
Yeah, fucking hold on. Culture, right? Fluent business. The club is known especially for its annual summer retreat at what is known as Bohemian Grove in the redwood forest of California's Sonoma County, an event that continued into the 21st century. It says notable members over the years have included Clint Eastwood, Henry Kissinger, Walter Cronkite, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, Charles Schwab, Ambrose. I don't know who that is. How do you say that? Bercier? Bret Hart, Harte, H-A-R-T, Hart probably.
I was like, that can't be the same Bret Hart I'm thinking.
Yeah, the Hitman, Mark Twain, and Jack London. Henry Kissinger, I'm pretty sure, who is Henry? Was he was he a American politician?
I think he's a politician, isn't he?
Politician, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I'm pretty sure he had a whole bunch of like.
Here's my problem. Like, there's a lot of knowledge I realize I have in my brain, and then if you like put me on the spot, it's like, oh no, I can't recall. But then like at some random ass trivia night, I'm like, oh no, I know this, and because of all these 12 other facts that don't link together, but now I remember it.
All right, so I'm still not to the point. So I think this is him sneaking into the woods at this fucking.
What?
Yes. Okay. Now we're getting
What
somewhere,
the hell?
buddy. He snuck onto here.
So they don't know he's here.
No.
Oh, that's insane.
And before he did this was all hearsay conspiracy.
Wow. Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder, like, when you really get down to it, like, you know, well, why don't we just get somebody in there to go check it out?
We sat there in the darkness, not knowing what we were about to see in the gathering crowd. Suddenly, across the small lake, we saw a carriage with men in black and brown cloaks, robes, in front and in back, bearing a bound body. Remember, it was a hidden camera and at somewhat of an angle.
Oh, they got the bagpipes too.
Yeah, bro.
Man, Alex is one of those dudes that you start wondering, like, now that I see stuff like this, I'm like, what kind of shit has that dude seen? Because that would explain a lot about his personality.
Yeah, I think he was real fucked up with that Sandy Hook shit.
I think he really
He was really wrong for that. And I think that really hurt him big time. But one of the most recent times he was on Rogan, or the last time, maybe the last time he was on Rogan, Joe kept slowing him down, right, to your point.
I remember that.
And he kept having Jamie fact check him and pull him up. And Joe actually just mentioned this on a recent podcast, why because they were talking about Alex. He's like, and I wanted to do that because he said, because I wanted people to see that he spouts off all this shit and he goes a million miles an hour, but the shit that he's talking about, he's actually researched.
Yeah.
And everything that he's researched, he can tell you where he found it, and you can actually pull it up.
Yeah.
And that's what he kept having Jamie do.
That's interesting. And that is kind of cool.
Yes, and there's a lot of things over the years that has come to truth. But think about this, right? So let's just, I try to, in my mind, I typically look at things at the most simple level.
Yeah.
So let's just look at the beginning of the country. There's 13 colonies. There's not a ton of fucking people.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership isn't very big. We know that there are.
Uh-oh.
I'll remember my point. We'll come back to it. This is the ritual.
So he's off in the woods, videoing down on the ceremony.
The ceremony is here in the background.
Okay.
This is them. You see?
So the thing that's right in front of, is that like someone's head?
So he's at an angle here. Okay, so maybe if I turn it, now you can see.
No, I got that. I'm trying to figure out like how far away, because that looks like that's someone's head right in front. So is he?
These are people standing. This is a person walking.
Like this shadow right here, is that the back of someone's head there, I guess?
This? Oh, I don't know. I don't know if that's somebody's head or if that's.
I'm trying to figure out like how close is he to this, you know?
It looks like he's across.
He's
there's a river there. I think he's in the woods. There's a lake or something. He's across.
See, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is like, how dangerous was this, really? Because if you think about it, like, this is shit that they don't want out.
Yes. No, I mean, he's on a compound.
Right.
Yeah. So this is, in my mind, probably some dangerous shit, dude.
Yeah, you leave that there. That's good. You know what kills me about this as I'm hearing this here? I've seen a lot of, like, you know, church events and processions and things like this. This dude has definitely done this before. This guy that's talking right now, like, this is not his first ceremony.
No, this is a real,
that is the voice of a seasoned vet. Like, he's memorized this stuff, and he almost sounds like a little, all right, the sky is sown with stars, and the frogs, and the winds, and the...
Yeah, he's recited this before.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, this is some wild shit, bro. Yeah, this is...
So, like, I'm almost nervous to ask, but, like, what ends up happening with that body?
I don't think it's an actual human.
Okay. Whoa.
Oh, shit.
Oh, and now we get the commercial. I will say, this is one of the biggest thanks I have on YouTube is I'm very thankful for Cobra Kai for giving me YouTube Premium that I totally forgot to cancel.
Okay. Yeah,
I got screwed up whenever it's like, oh, it's on Netflix now. All right. Well, I like no ads.
Yeah, I've yet to get it. You shall burn.
What?
I think it's like a.
What is that laughing?
It's like a play of some sort.
What the fuck?
This is like a whole ritual, like, play. The fuck?
oh, if this is a play, this is like some Shakespeare in the Park shit. They need to hire some good actors here.
No.
I'm sorry, I'm just ripping on it now.
Oh, I was like, this is some weird ass shit,
It
bro.
is some very weird ass shit, but like I think we
Look-
need to get like Benedict Cumberbatch up on there for the lead.
It's,
No. Who's? Did you ever watch Sherlock? Andrew Scott, the guy who played.
Is it a show?
Yeah.
No, I never watched it.
So there's a British actor who I'll send you a link to it, but he has one of the best. What the shit?
Oh yeah, so he's in the crowd here.
Oh wow. Okay, so to answer my question, he is really close to some action.
That's a hidden camera. So this is a whole ceremonial play, I guess, for this club.
Get into some enhanced video, and we'll go play by play through some of the more occultic statements, like "We shall read the sign in your burned effigy, the bound body." That's exactly what the Druids actually did. They would roast cats, goats, oxen, horses, and watch the pain of how they died, and from this extract some type of mystical energy force or power, and also be able to tell the future.
So the list of people like Clint Eastwood and such are in this group. The fuck,
Messed up.
dude, and that's just elites. So my point. I'm gonna have to watch this whole thing. I'm gonna go back and spend an hour and a half watching this sometime. My point is, so if you think back to, let's just say, the beginning of the formation of the United States, right? We know that there was a small group of men. I don't know. Let's call it 100 dudes. I don't know how many it was. 100 people.
Maybe even 50.
Yeah. Right. And they all worked with. Those were effectively now the leaders and what we would call today the elites of society.
Yeah.
Right? They're all going to work with each other, talk to each other. I think as things grow, they're going to continue to kind of work with each other, talk with each other. We know that there's been other families that have like immigrated to the United States, built massive empires, inserted themselves also into like this elite status. My point is, even as the country's grown, there's that group at the top. Because I mean, I think we can probably all agree there is that group at the top, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Right, and they all probably, for the most part, work with each other, talk with each other.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders was trying to tax them all.
Know each other.
Right.
Right. Because it started small.
Yep.
And I don't know how big it is today, but it's still proportionately small.
Yeah, especially when you think of like total world population versus them.
Right.
You know, yeah, it's got to be a very small percentage of the population.
Yeah, dude.
But it's funny, like when you think like how it would grow. The key word there was scale, because it's like, well, I don't know how many there are, how much they talk to each other. Man, again, with like messaging apps left and right, they probably have their own little system or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's probably chat rooms. I'm sure there's WhatsApp groups or something equivalent of that.
Something
that they could probably all just like drop stuff in. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and then that we talk about conspiracies, go down that whole rabbit hole and shit. But you see shit like this, and that's just elite small groups of people. You look at Hollywood, that's a very small community, Hollywood, actually. They just have a mega fucking microphone, bro. Like, have you been to LA before?
No, I haven't actually. I went to San Francisco years ago. I didn't get to make it over to LA.
Okay, but like when you go to these places that maybe you've only seen through TV or some shit, you go there and it's not the same.
No.
It's not this big, grand, magnificent thing. Especially Hollywood, LA is kind of it's super cool, like, place to go visit. But at least for me, maybe this is just my experience when I went there, it's kind of underwhelming in the fact that it's not this huge it's like it's just a place.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Chicago was that way for me because I thought it would be way bigger, more grandiose than it was, and we get there and it's like, oh, it's just as crowded and. I mean, it is bigger than St. Louis, but it's like there's a lot of similarity to it where it's like, oh, this is not. I don't know. I thought it'd be different.
Our imagination builds these things up.
Yes.
And then we go visit them, and it brings it into reality. And I think Hollywood's kind of one of those places that are it's supercharged when it comes to our imagination. It's amplified that much
Yeah.
more, right? Because that's what we see on TV and movies and all of these things. We just have all these images, and the
Yeah.
people there are projected as larger than life because that's what makes them stars, right?
Yes, and I wonder how much like because people when they're crafting things for entertainment purposes realize like what do people really want to see? Well, let's give them that, but let's dial it up a notch. You know, it's I always think of in a weird way, whenever Dwayne Johnson talked about what it was like going from Dwayne Johnson to The Rock.
Yeah.
It's the same dude but turned up to 11. And so I wonder like how much of like the movie and the media magic that takes a city and makes it look like LA looks like this grand and glorious place, and then you get there and you're like, this is kind of a shithole.
Yeah.
So or Chicago, it was like, oh, okay, I mean, I could see the allure to it, but for the most part, it's like it's another big city.
Right. Yeah.
I've heard people say that about New York all the time.
Exactly. So the idea that so my point is that when you look at LA, you think that it's more than it is. So
Yeah.
it's this whole big thing, but really it's just like a small group of people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's only so many studios. There's only so many studio heads. There's only so many executives. It's a small community.
Very
You,
much
you
so,
hear
yeah.
actors talk about it all the time. You piss off one person, now you'll never fucking work again.
Yeah.
Type stuff. So you think about it. So that's a small community, and a lot of those small community is a lot of that community is doing weird shit like that
Yeah.
and worshiping the devil and crazy shit. And it's like, fuck, dude. And
Yeah,
then how tight knit is that community with like the political community and all this other shit?
Right. I wonder how tight do they need to be able to pull some of that shit off of some of those communities too? Like,
I don't know, man.
how many have a lot of like friends that are
Yeah.
wearing blue and have a badge on, and
Yeah.
that's the other thing too, is like to pull off shit like this, like you got to have a few resources to at least get around a few things, or at least okay, well, we're gonna mind our P's and Q's for a while, and then like no one's looking. All right, let's go nuts.
Right. Well, have you seen those things about the CIA and some of the experiments that they did with like MK Ultra and trying to do like mind control and
I remember hearing a lot, especially in the world of like psychedelics, where they would do stuff, and then it turned out when God, I'm paraphrasing the LSD one, but like somebody had cued me into something where it was like the CIA tried experimenting with LSD for mind control, but then they found that when people took it, they were actually harder to control.
oh really?
Or like it's something like that. I'm butchering that. I
Yeah.
know I am, but it's something along those
Yeah.
lines.
Well, either way,
I'll
they,
hunt that down.
they
later.
had the experiment. It was the MK Ultra
Mhm.
plan, right? When the part of that was like doing mind control and shit like that, and a lot, and they paired that with Hollywood
Mhm.
and some of the information that they put out there, and I can't remember the name of the fucking operation, but they did do something with LSD where. I believe it was in
Yeah.
San Francisco. It's actually in this book down here called Chaos, where they talk a lot about that. How
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
CIA and LSD, and I think it was Manson and
Mm-hmm.
and those experiments or those that what they did was they would dose Johns with LSD because they were coming to this like this brothel
Yeah.
for like a hooker, and they would watch them through a two-way mirror and record them unbeknownst to the John, and,
Right.
and they got dosed with LSD. So, dude, the government has been doing certain people and within organizations of the government have been studying and doing this kind of shit.
I think there's always that.
There's a lot of fuckery going on. Mike.
Exactly.
That's my
There's
point.
always a subset of people that are always going to do something fucky.
Yeah, dude.
And it's one of those things where too, like, I struggle in a lot of places with when you have a certain thing that you want to try and keep intact or pure, like, especially like with anything you see online. I almost start wondering like how long before this gets tainted, and so it's like you have, the idea of you have something that could be really meaningful to someone or really like special, like, and I'll just give you an example of like Disney, because you hear all the conspiracies about Disney and subliminal messages they put in and how like they're trying to reprogram and rewire us. And I'm like, off the hip, it seems really pure and magical and it's just a kid friendly thing. And they're like, no, Disney's kind of fucked up at the end of the day. And so like in my head, like I think of stuff like that and it's like, did it start out that way or was it always started out to be the other thing and it was always nefarious, right? That's where I struggle sometimes with, was this always the intent in the design or did someone take the reins and said, I could use this for this now? And all it takes is just a little, we're going to shift it off course that way. And it's a completely different direction over time. So I wonder, and then you start looking at things you're involved in, like, hey, when will Jiu Jitsu have fuckery in it? does it already. I mean, who knows?
You know, you make a great point. That's a great question.
I sincerely wonder sometimes, like when you like even in groups of fitness or groups of life coaches that I've known, like when you see all these different, like, at one point I took a couple courses on NLP. Well, how long before I found out that the guy who created NLP was really like a well-known pedophile or something like that, and I go, fuck, now I got this on my head. And that's, I found myself going down that rabbit hole a long time ago, and I've had to really like kind of dial the reins back, because especially with my ADD brain, I'll just research the shit out of it and be like, what I need to do? Oh, right, make biscuits for tonight. Like I'll forget stuff like that and be like, what was I doing with my life? Oh, right, I forgot dinner or pizza. This.
Fuck, dude.
Yeah, and so like I wonder, like, oh man, when is that going to happen? But it's really, really easy to fall down those rabbit holes.
It is.
Which is part of the reason why they're so fun too.
That's what we've been talking about for the last hour.
Exactly. That's how it started. I started with the question of like, hey, what's your favorite one? And here we are.
Yeah, man. Yeah, as anything grows, there's always room for fuckery.
I agree.
And someone's probably always going to do it.
Well, and again, just like what we're talking about with Rogan, it's like, how much have we heard about like cancel culture in the last like just 2 to 3 years?
Yeah.
And it's been building and building and building to where now it's just faster. It's more efficient. Because again, I can send a tweet out and I can get big influential people like Dwayne Johnson to say, hey, Joe Rogan's going under attack for blah, blah, blah. And he's like, nah, Joe's doing his thing. He's great. And then, hey, Joe said the N-word 27 times in this clip here. And he goes, oh, that's messed up. Forget you, Joe. And that happened in the course of a week. And really, I would argue it happened in the course of 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Not even.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting. Everybody's just trying to say the right thing.
And I think everyone's just trying to get noticed. That's what's really interesting, is everybody just wants to be noticed of, I was the guy that brought Joe Rogan down, or I was the guy that I brought this information to light.
Yeah.
And then you're forgotten 15 minutes later.
Yeah. This is why I've been feeling very disenfranchised when it comes to social media. I just don't want to do it.
Yeah. I like, and again, I sell the stuff. I sell how to market to business and stuff. But me personally, it's like, I understand that there are certain, I don't want to say necessary evils, but there are certain things that, like, if you want to get the name out, there are certain things that have to be done somehow, some way. I don't like calling them evils because, again, I don't think marketing in and of itself is inherently good or evil.
It's just the reality of the world.
Yeah, it's like if you want brand awareness, you got to do something, like whether you're hitting the streets with flyers like they did back in the day, or you're doing door-to-door knock, hey, here's my vacuum, right? I mean, those are all marketing efforts that have just evolved. The company I worked for was around for 100 years. Years ago, the joke I used to have is their original social media banners were like ads on the sides of trains. So that was social media back in the day.
It's true.
So, it does evolve over time, and you might not get a banner ad for, 3 weeks until the train comes back in town with the supply run. Mm-hmm. Now it's like I'm over here playing Candy Crush, and, oh, hey, there's an advertisement for Jiu Jitsu, or, hey, there's Adam's podcast. I'll click that off there, and, I finally listen.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting how things evolve. But, yeah, for people to do that and really get their name out there, it is something that at some point they're going to have to buckle down and learn.
Yeah, you just got to do it.
I will say, I kind of in that same breath, it is frustrating when I hear, people talking about, man, I need to get like membership up, or I need more clients, or I need more customers, or whatever. And go, well, hey, are you marketing somehow? And I'm not even looking to make a sale. I'm just offering like, hey, what are you doing? Can I help? Like, just give you some advice or pointers on some things you can do pretty low cost. You don't have to hire anybody. And they're like, yeah, I don't really do too kindly with that. They're advertising stuff. And I'm like, dude, you're 27. What the hell?
Like, come on, Grandpa.
Like, I'm literally 10 years older than you, and I understand like you're behind.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of stuff frustrates me. I'm like, why are people still stuck in this mindset of, I don't want to grow, but that's really they just don't have a growth mindset.
Well, also, here's the thing though. When I think about marketing, how it used to be and how it is today, we're in a place now, it seems that you have to create more marketing material than ever before. Marketing is,
yes,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, content creation is almost more valuable than the marketing itself.
Well, and it used to be that, say you made a really sick ass commercial, and you could run that ad for 3 months, 6 months,
maybe even a year.
Yeah, and get a lot out of that commercial.
Oh yeah.
Now, No way.
No, you got
No
you got
fucking
a
way.
week tops,
Well, you probably got more than that.
maybe 2.
But you got but okay, let's just say you're running that one for 90 days. Even while that one's running, you can't rely only on that, right? Maybe you got like a week or two of heavy
Maybe that's what I'm getting at.
yeah.
You
But
can put it out and kind of chill for a minute and be like, all right, back to the drawing board.
But guess what? Yeah, within another week or two, you need to have something else running simultaneously now.
Absolutely.
And something new.
You know who, as soon as you said, like, you have a really good commercial you can rely on for a while, you know the first company that came to mind? Did you ever see the first Dollar Shave Club commercial years ago? It's got this guy walking around in a warehouse, and it starts off with him. It's like, hi, I'm Mike, owner of Dollar Shave Club. And it's very, like, informative, and he goes, are our razors good? No. And he goes to a sign, and literally as he's walking, there's a sign on the wall that says, our razors are fucking great. And then the rest of the commercial gets this weird little comedic twist that just gets a little more absurd every 15 seconds.
Really?
And at one point, like, he's in a cart, like, on, like, those little, it's not even like a forklift per se, but it kind of looks like that, where you've got this worker, Alejandra, and Mike is driving the truck, and he goes, and we also help with it with the unemployment too. Alejandra, where were you last week? Not working. Where are you this week? Working. I'm no Rockefeller, but this train moves hay. I'm dying because it's getting more and more absurd. With like he just takes a machete and chops the packing tape, and they cut it that's clearly not done, and it hits this like giant fuzzy bear that just appears out of nowhere.
That's hilarious.
And he's like, I can't even see the package, but he knows it's there, and it's a hilarious commercial. But it was so basic and simple in its approach. And I remember thinking years ago, I'm like, man, if I had a gym, I want to do a gym tour commercial that was very similar to that. Just because I like the idea of, like, our trainer's good? No, they're fucking great. Just hit him right between the eyes with what we have.
That's awesome, dude.
It was so clever and so simple. And, dude, I bet you in some case they'll probably still reshare that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, the commercial that kicked it all off 12 years ago.
Well, that's the hope, that you make something that just hits like that.
Right.
Yeah. Then you get return on that.
Third time on the show, this might be the episode for you.
This is it. Fuck yeah, bro.
Maybe you got to have, like, just people come back and just re-update once in a while.
Yeah.
I will say I found myself very irritated with myself last time on the show.
Why?
Okay, so like when you go back and listen to it, or like great example, watch old competition footage of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Just watch footage of yourself or listen to yourself years ago and go, what was I doing? I don't know if I had like an extra cup of coffee or an energy drink before I came in, but I was like, I was listening to that episode probably 2-3 months ago, and I remember just like, I'm typing, I'm doing some stuff, listening to the background, and I stopped and I just looked at the screen and go, why am I laughing at my own jokes like a fucking asshole? and I'm just sitting here just cracking up at myself laughing, and I mean, we were engaging, and so it was like I would crack something, we would both laugh. I don't know if I was just getting picked up more in the mic, or if I'm just more conscious of that now, where I try not to be that guy that laughs at my own shit.
You can't laugh at your own shit, bro.
I do, but I don't do it like
and...
I do it genuinely now. I felt like and maybe it's just like I've done more stuff on like how to like do better public speaking kind of like I've been a little bit more comfortable in those settings now, to where I feel like in some cases, like maybe back at that time, I did that to try and force a reaction, where now I just kind of let it happen more authentically.
Yeah.
And that was what I noticed I was doing. And again, I don't even – it might just be me now being overcritical, but looking back at it, I remember thinking, like, that joke wasn't funny. Shut up. Like, what am I doing here?
I'm sure that's a part of it.
I think that is too. And it is just us being hypercritical of things in the past.
But I hate listening to myself, although it's useful information.
I actually – as I was listening to that, because we were talking about how I started beekeeping at that time. Yeah. I did pick up 2 or 3 things. I'm like, oh, shit, I forgot I did that. That was a good tip. And so I wrote that down.
Are you still beekeeping?
I do. Actually, I lost the hive that I had this last year. They were good, and then I think same thing that happened to me last season. Those cold snaps in February.
Fucked them all up.
Just messed them all up. And so I'm going to do something a little different this year. I'm going to go back to what I did the very first year I started beekeeping, but I'm going to super insulate the hive. And I'm working with I don't say different mentor. I'm working with a couple different mentors now. And when it gets time to winterize, I'm going to follow what this one guy has been doing for like literally 50 years. He started beekeeping back in like the 70s, I think, 60s, 70s, somewhere in there. And it's this old guy up in Ohio named Bob Parsons, and he makes this like herbal treatment that keeps bees super clean and productive. Pests hate You put the stuff like kind of on an area where they'll walk in and out of the hive, right? And so then they track that all throughout because it's like an oil-based product. It's not harmful to the bees at all, but mites and other beetles that'll like get in there absolutely hate the smell. And so he's had so many crazy ass stories of people at small boutique and commercial apiaries and bee farms, right? That just have this wild success. Like honey production goes through the roof with this stuff. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to try something completely different. Fuck the books. Fuck what Google says. I'm going to just touch base with this guy once every couple weeks. And I'm going to say, this is what I'm doing. Here's where we're at. What do you recommend? And then right about wintertime, or not wintertime, but right about probably September, October, when we get ready to start winterizing for the fall, I know I'm going to be feeding them and getting like sugar supplies up and getting the honey reserves up as much as I can and really babying them. But I want to leave them with just a metric ass ton of honey in that hive to see if they last the winter and then insulate the shit out of it. And then see if they can get them last. Because second-year bees will always produce more. Because they've got everything drawn out. They've got everything ready to go. If your queen survives, then yeah, she'll get right to work whenever flowers come up.
How the hell did you find that guy?
By complete accident. It was the guy that I originally started mentoring with down in Farmington. He uses that same extract or that same the treatment, and I've just been the kind of guy. And funny enough, going back to Dave Whitley for a second, the reason that I've always been, I'll always when I geek out over something, I will find somebody who is like the man or the expert in that field, right? And I will search that person out. And so my buddy Mick was like, yeah, I get this stuff. It's called Parsons Gold. So I started searching around Parsons Gold. Couldn't find it. And I'm like, all right, well, there's got to be a number out there somewhere. And so just, Mick, do you got the guy's number? And he goes, no, I don't think I have it. And I don't know if he would like just didn't realize he did or if it was like, I'm trying to keep this hush-hush kind of thing. Because like everyone has that little secret they don't want everyone to know. Like, why not? Like, it just makes everyone better if you just do it.
Yeah.
Right? If it's really that good, just share it.
I always ask a person if I can give out their number before I do.
Yeah, and that was the other thing. So I ended up finding this guy's information on it literally was an ad in a book of beekeeping supplies. It's like, I mean, you're talking like the old catalog style mail order ads. And I'm like, this can't be the same guy. And I called him and goes, hello, this is Bob. And I'm like, holy shit, this is the guy.
That's crazy.
And what was funny is, and I've joked with him about this as well to him, like when he and I chat, he always does this thing where he'll say, listen, I only got about 15 minutes, but I'll answer your question. And about 90 minutes later, we're getting off the phone. And so there was one night where literally I said, hey, Bob, you got 10, 15 minutes. I can just ask you a couple questions just to get started. I don't want to take up too much of your time. He goes, oh, I'm really busy. I got all this here, but I can give you 15. All right, cool. We were on the phone for 2.5 hours.
You got to talk about his passion.
Oh, yeah, and he has all these crazy stories of, like, things he's seen and done, and, like, I'm literally just taking notes. My wife came down and was handing me dinner, and she's like, are you still on the phone with Bob? I'm like, yeah, he's still going. She's like, that's been an hour. I'm like, shut up. I got notes, woman. I had, like, 4 pages of notes I took.
Oh, shit, dude.
And she's like, oh, you weren't kidding. Like, you legit took.
Yeah.
Like, that was a class you just took, apparently.
Dang, dude. That's
and then
cool.
my favorite part is she asked me, what did you ask him that kicked this off? And I went, I don't remember. that was like a year ago, babe. I mean, but every time he opens his mouth, it's like you're drinking from a fire hydrant.
Yeah, just knowledge.
And so, and Dave was the same way because I had a question about a product and there was a program question and I thought, this is going to sound silly, but in the back of the manual that he sends out for this thing, or it had like a little thing for customer service, call this number, or email like irontamerdave@gmail or whatever it was at the time. And I thought, screw it. I'll give the number a call. And it's like, hello, it's David. And I go, oh, I wasn't expecting to get the guy. He goes, yep, turns out I am customer service. So it's like, oh, well, all right. So I'll just call the dude.
Right to the source, baby.
Yeah, just go right to the source. And I think that is one of the things I really kind of miss going back to the media thing. I miss being able to just go right to the source of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I forget why I got on that particular tangent, but it's like I think maybe this is my own little PSA. If you really just want to know something, just go to the place where you heard it in the first place and see if you can find it from there. Because you're right. Like, you know, ask like, hey, can I give this guy's number out? Because if it's going to help people, why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so I did order a couple hives from him this year.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm just going to do everything from this guy for 1 year and just see what happens.
Will that extract change the flavor of the honey?
No, it does not. It doesn't change the flavor of it because it doesn't really have much of a. It's weird because it has like some herbal extracts in it that like I guess pests hate, but it's not strong enough that it like infuses into the honey or you would smell it. Because honey's a pretty strong smell by itself when you like, especially when you get a bunch of it. But what I have noticed is that there are different treatments in there. Like if you have like varroa mites, which they can really wreck a hive, and I mean they'll kill the shit out of your bees. There's strips that you put down. I think it's called Apivar. And from what I've been told, I haven't had to use it yet, but I've heard that like if you use that, you cannot. I mean, you don't really want to use that honey because it just smells bad. And it makes sense because the stuff stinks. Like if you put that in the hive, you're fumigating that thing and getting those pests out. But if you want to keep a healthy colony, sometimes you have to do that in order to like say, hey, listen, we're not going to harvest anything that we're going to use.
Yeah.
I've heard some people will put it aside and then they'll try to reintroduce it back to them and let them eat their own honey kind of thing. So I've heard a couple different theories on how to handle that stuff. Some people say you can just pasteurize it and heat it and it kills the flavor. I haven't screwed with that stuff. So that to me right now, that's a lot of maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't say old wives' tale or hearsay because I'm sure people have had different experiences. I haven't had to do that yet.
Yeah.
But I also cheat. I don't do a lot of the extraction. I have that little plastic flow frame. I put the key in, I turn, and it comes out on the tap.
So the smell of the honey is an indicator of how good it is? Or
Yeah,
if it's good?
it can be. Yeah, because especially if it like.
So I've never come across honey that smells bad. That's probably because they don't sell bad honey.
The only yeah, well, that too. The only time I've really ever noticed a bad smell, and it wasn't one I had. There's a buddy of mine up in Colombia. He started doing a little backyard operation, and he had 2 colonies. Which I told him, if you're going to do it, just start with 2 colonies because you could, if one's doing really well and one's not, you could take some resources and move it over. But we opened it up, and because I've been doing some home brewing stuff, like learning how to make mead, and I've even done like a couple like batches of like home beer, which I definitely prefer the mead. It's one less work, and I'm all about like I like doing the stuff that's like I can be really good with not having to do a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
That's why I love barbecue too. It's like it's a lot of hurry up and wait.
That's true.
So I love those
But
approaches.
if you
right?
do it right.
If you do it right, it's magical.
Oh, man.
But if you try to rush it and you do too much stuff, it's like you feel like you're stressing yourself out. You're like, was it really that much better?
Yeah.
You know. But we opened it up, and I could just smell like when something's fermenting, that kind of not vinegary like smell, but you can start to
It's kind of pungent.
Yeah, like kombucha, right? Or that it has that kind of alcoholic
Yeah, I like that smell though.
kick. Yeah,
But honey shouldn't smell like that.
no, well, unless you're making mead, which I took one smell. I go, oh, dude, you got a pest problem. He's like, how can you tell? I'm like, because I know that smell whenever I'm making mead.
So you know it's fermenting.
And I could tell it was fermenting. And so sure enough, we looked around there, and hive beetles, when they will like run around, they'll defecate all over the place. Well, that will cause the honey to ferment because they have a natural yeast about them.
Oh.
And so it's not so much the beetle, it's the larva that's the problem because they'll just munch through everything and they're shitting all over the place, and that causes the fermentation. Well, then when they drop down to the ground, the beetles crawl back up in, and then they do their business, and you could just have beetles all over the place.
Oh, shit.
And that's a pain in the ass. I had a small problem with that, but apparently they make fun little traps that you can kind of bait them to fall in with like mineral oil, and they're like, oh, this is awesome, and then they drown.
Fuck you, beetle.
Exactly. It's like, and so, but now they're all dead anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Fuck them all, dude.
Fuck them all, man. Yeah, I'm excited though. That's something I really wanted to get good at this year. Was like I wanted to drill down on that and make sure I can like do that on the regular. But I've also got a whole bunch of like just I want to clean up my yard. I want to clean up stuff and just have like a really nice. I don't want to say like homesteading kind of house, but like start to do more of that. Grow my own vegetables. Get some blueberries. I've got 3 elderberry plants on the side of my house.
Oh, dope.
Hopefully they all pop fruit this year. In which case I'm like, oh sweet, immunity gummy time.
You got chickens?
Not yet. My wife will not allow chickens.
Oh, really?
We just got a dog, and that was a win for me to get the dog.
Was it?
Yeah. It what's funny is my cousin used to keep chickens literally like 3 blocks from where I live. And I'm like, oh, come on. He did it. She's like, I don't want chickens.
Just a few.
I only need, what's the minimum amount of chickens you need to like really have a consistent stream of eggs? Or
In my mind, I don't have any basis for this number, but in my mind, I think 3 chickens is a good number of chickens.
I'm sure I'm going to get ripped apart, but I was going to say 5.
Yeah, in my mind, well,
5 would be good.
I really want 6.
Why not 12?
I like even.
Let's just keep adding to it.
I like even numbers.
That's fair. Okay, I can give you that. Yeah. But I'm thinking, like, if you, the only thing I did notice was my cousin had this issue where he had a really, really loud rooster.
Yeah.
And so it's like right at
Fuck
about
that
5
rooster.
a.m.
Do you
it was,
need a rooster?
I think you need a rooster.
Do you?
I think you need.
I mean,
It makes sense, right?
does it?
For mating for eggs, right?
Well, no, because here's the thing: the hens are gonna lay the eggs regardless, and the thing.
Oh, okay. That's just if you want like chicks.
Yeah, and
Okay.
they're just not gonna be fertilized. So
See, I
that's
think
the beauty.
it's one of those things where if you're going to go on that route, if you're going to start getting chickens, like I think at some point you need to have that available to where like, okay, we can start with 3, but then we have to have a few hatch.
Make a few more.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to breed them.
And then eventually, like, don't they stop laying eggs at some point, and that's when they become like, barbecue.
You buy a new one. Yeah. Yeah, you should probably. Yeah, but that motherfucker's loud, dude. Fuck that rooster.
That one, yeah, but I mean, like when the hens stop laying.
Oh, you're gonna eat them? Absolutely.
Yeah, that's barbecue shit right there.
For sure.
That's homemade KFC.
Of course.
Right.
Of course. I'm eating the liver.
Yeah, exactly. What do you call this chicken? Well, that one's Betsy. What's that one? Original recipe, and that's extra crispy.
Yeah, you're not supposed to name them, but
No.
if you name them that though.
I give him a number. That's as far as I'll go. I'll literally like stamp like a very like safe coding of like you are number 12.
Yeah. I want chickens.
See, chickens I would not be opposed to, but I think I need to lock down bees first.
Yeah, do your bee thing.
I need to get bees down because I look at it this way. Honey is one of those things that I don't know if like people are just afraid of getting stung so much that like I don't want to fuck with bees.
Yeah.
But I know enough people that have done chickens and a few other like homesteading projects where they do like vegetables and fruits and stuff like that. I'm like, I think I could get a little community of like bartering for honey.
Yeah, trade.
Yeah, because I'm
Absolutely.
pretty sure my honey is more expensive than your eggs.
For sure.
Unless I just don't have enough of it, and in which case you beat me by volume.
But if you have enough, then it's just fair trade.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and I know enough people that like we've had this dream of getting like sustainable communes for a while. Like, hey, we're just gonna go move down and do this. But I'm like, that's a lot of work. Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. But
that's a lot of commitment to the community.
If I can get like some stuff at a farmer's market where we can barter some shit off, like I'm cool there too.
Yeah.
I'll settle.
Yeah.
But eventually, I do want to get blueberries in my backyard.
That'd be dope.
That would be really fun.
That'd be real cool.
Plus, I've heard blueberry honey is amazing.
Mm.
I have not tried that yet, but I definitely need to put that on the list.
That sounds delicious.
So my friend down south in Missouri, he has a massive property that his dad owns, and he has like I think 5 or 10 colonies of bees down there. One of the areas is just almost pure clover. So there's just pure clover honey that's always in that box. And then down a little bit further on the property, he's got, I think he said he planted blackberries last summer, I mean. So there's going to be a whole bunch of blackberry honey because I think those all have flowers as well. And then I think he said he's going to start doing blueberries and do the same thing. And I went, shit, man, you want to start trading some jars of like specifics here? Because I have like dreams of like making mead with like that. Like if I do a blueberry mead, I want to do blueberry honey in that. And I'm very like I got to try this at least once.
You're about to be a mead and honey salesman.
I should be. Yeah.
That's totally your company.
If I could just do like just the mead thing, I have pipe dreams of like have a big ass farm.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it doesn't have to be that farm. That
Why
big.
is
Like,
it pipe dreams? It's goals, bro.
that's really what it is. It's a dream I just haven't taken action yet on.
There you go.
Yeah. But get a couple acres. Bunch of like flowering plants and vegetables and fruits and stuff, and then like put the bee boxes near like all the flowering fruit plants or whatever, and just let that boom.
Yeah.
Harvest that, take the honey, sell the honey off, have just buckets and buckets of stuff on reserve, and be like, all right, it's January, let's start making mead for Christmas. Just put that stuff in a big 5-gallon batch on the side and be like, all right, time to bottle.
That'd be cool.
That would be fun.
Yeah, bro.
So I did teach my kids how to make ginger ale the other day.
Oh, really?
That was fun.
I don't even think I know how to make that.
It's simple, man. You just chop ginger, and if you look up how to make a ginger bug, it's more intimidating than it really is because you think it's a lot of steps. It's just take some clean water, a bunch of sugar, and some ginger, and just let it go.
Just let it sit.
Once that starts fermenting, then you make like a ginger tea, and you put the bug into the tea after it cools down, and then it ferments off those last bits of sugar that's in there, and you're done.
How long does that take?
3 days. Oh, once it gets kicked off, I would say maybe start to finish, probably about a week.
Okay.
Because you want like once you bottle it, you want those swing top bottles. You got to let them sit on the countertop at room temperature, and then when you're ready, you get it fizzy enough, pop it in the fridge.
Yeah.
Because then it's like it'll cool it down. It's like the perfect level of carbonation, but
Okay.
it's naturally carbonated.
Right.
There's no
From
other
the sugar.
Yes.
Yeah. I used to make kombucha.
It's the same process.
Similar
basically.
process.
Yeah, very similar process. It's just you're using ginger and sugar instead of a SCOBY.
Yeah.
So, which I need to start doing kombucha because that I've heard too many good things about. And I'm like, how have I not done this now?
It's just such a pain in the ass to keep up.
Really?
That's why I say I used to.
That's fair. Because I know, like, when I make mead, like, taking some of the yeast out of the bottom and washing that to reuse it,
Yeah.
that gets to be a pain in the ass.
It's just whether or not you're going to be habitual about it. You know what I mean?
think that's the true thing, too.
Because otherwise it's just going to just sit there. Like, the SCOBY's just going to sit there.
So how often, do you have to, like, make, like, I guess the question is, like, how much did you make at a time? And, like, how much do you feel like you need to make at a time to make it, like, a habitual thing? Where would you do, like, every month, every couple weeks? Like, what would be a good rotation?
It just depends on the person. Like, for me, I just made a gallon at a time.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I would just make a gallon at a time. And then I was kind of experimenting with, like, flavors.
Okay.
Putting different fruits in there. Strawberries took really well to it.
Really?
Cucumbers, different things. Yeah.
Okay.
Letting it sit in there and kind of change the flavor. And it was cool, but it's just the thing, once you make it and then you bottle it, you pretty much need to start making the next one immediately.
That's fair.
And I just was never really good about continuing the cycle. Eventually, I just stopped it, and then you come to the restart point, and I got to restart the process over again. Which you're always restarting the process, but now I'm restarting the process, now I'm waiting. So there's like that dry period. I just didn't have the discipline to do it.
That's one thing that I've gotten a little bit. I've kind of backed off of, like, doing stuff with mead where, like, I'll do, like, a big batch here and there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna do one today because it's just a flavor that my wife really gets a kick out of, and it's stupid simple. You just basically take, like, ocean spray grape juice, honey, and then drop the yeast in, and you're done.
Oh.
And just mix all that together, and then it's literally done in about maybe 2 to 3 weeks.
Simple.
Very simple, and it comes out hot. So it's like she doesn't like a lot of red wines, but this is just sweet enough that she's like, oh, I'm in. So she goes and gets all white girl wasted with that shit. But what's really funny is that, like, I start getting into these rotations where I'm like, okay, I got to do this, and then I kind of back off for a while, and I don't have anything. I'm like, all right, cool. And then right about the time I start bottling stuff that's been kind of sitting in the basement for a while, it's like, well, that one's free. I have to do one now, and I don't because I don't even drink that much.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, half the time I have, like, bottles that are just sitting in the basement that don't really do much, or I give them to friends, or, like, friends will come over and we'll have some then.
Yeah.
And that's really how I get rid of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, overall, it's a fun thing. And I think what I like about it the most is that, kind of going back to, like, the thing of, like, with barbecue. Why do I love barbecue so much? It's a lot of hurry up, it's wait, but you always almost have people come over. And so it becomes a very communal thing. And it's something like, if you have, like, good food and good drinks on the table, like, you don't really have too many people that are pissed off.
It's all about community.
Exactly. And so I'm a sucker for stuff like that. Like, that's my one little feels that I'll share with people. It's like, oh, man, we haven't seen you forever. All right, I'm probably going to smoke something. Like,
yeah.
I'm going to put a brisket on or something for you.
Yeah. Dude, you fucking make amazing barbecue.
Oh, thank you, man. Oh, that's right, because you had it at the...
Yeah, I had a little bit at the camping event.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I have not touched base with a lot of those guys. I got to see what's going on there in a while.
Yeah, man.
I kind of got bogged down with a lot of stuff, and I'm like, I just don't get on.
It's hard to keep up with people.
It is.
It is, man. This is why I like to have this excuse to pull people aside for a couple hours and talk to them.
Yeah.
But shit, it's hard to keep up with people. We're all just doing shit.
Yeah. Well, in the last several months too, it's funny how as much as I got the day job with digital media and sales in that regard, I also found myself in a way I don't want to say backing away from personal training, but I found a natural gravitation with more coaching with Jiu Jitsu. And so with me getting more involved in that, well, I put more time into, like, I had more time allocated there, so I kind of filled more time of coaching.
Right. That makes sense. You just did that 10-day,
and then the
course with
10-day
Hoyler.
Oh, my God, that was awesome.
That's a real commitment, right? I mean, you're now like an instructor within Gracie Umida, like officially.
Yes.
It's
And
legit.
that was a really fun experience, and it was interesting too because you don't just being able to, like, see that critical eye of someone who's been doing it for so long. Like, again, when you look out, like, someone who's, like, really truly a master of something, when you see how they teach and when you understand fine-tuned details of, like, what's their thought process to get here. Sometimes they will literally, like, what I found Hoyler asking, like, hey, why do we do it this way? He's like, just do the move. And it wasn't like he was trying to blow me off. I realized very quickly it was if you haven't put in enough time and reps to understand how the move works in the first place, I can't really give you the philosophy on how we got here. Because by the time you've already done enough reps to really understand it, you've probably already answered the question.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you do something 100 times, you're gonna be like, oh wait, this works in a lot of these
Yeah.
situations. But if you change one or two details, it's a different thing.
Yeah. Well, I think also some of it from a guy like that
Mhm.
who's again such a master, you know, with his input or his perspective, it's like, hey, just trust what I'm saying here,
Yeah,
and then just do it. Like, I think where I'm
Yeah.
at right now, like, just trust what I'm doing.
hmm
Like, I get that there's a lot of different variables and there's a lot of what
Right.
ifs, and you want to know the whys, but just trust that what I'm telling you is right.
hmm
Do this, and then to your point, like, I don't know if it was on air or off air, you were saying, like, learn this fundamental. I think that's Deja trying to get in, and then you can add your own spice and pepper. Right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, it
Right.
was off
So
air. And I found that even with like fitness, where like, you get somebody who's on a new program of like, hey, we're going to do these nutrition things, or we're going to do these lifting programs, and we're going to have you do this kind of cardio.
yeah.
Well, why do I do this? Hey, listen, like you'd spend a lot of time not doing this. Okay. If you're going to trust the process, you got to trust the process.
Just
you got
trust it. Yeah.
you got to trust that the way of thinking that got you here is not what's going to take you there.
Right.
And so if you came to this point, you realize that that doesn't work. So why would you fight to continue that same
Right.
process, that same pattern? And that was the one thing that fundamentally with like doing Amazing 12 or personal training in any case, or even in jiu-jitsu, when you get guys that like, hey, I'm trying to figure out a move from this position. Okay, well, why would you do that?
Mm.
Well, I don't know. I feel like it's there. Okay, well, do you feel it? Do you want it to be there, or is it actually there?
Yeah.
Because then, like, I've had people ask, like, hey, can I do this leg lock from here? And I look at their belt and I go, well, that belt is white, so no, you can't do this here because that's going to heel hook the shit out of someone.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I mean, when can I? Well, first off, take the gi off. And then, like, you can do heel hook whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Because no gi rules are way different. But, like, in the gi, it's just not fair. There's too much friction, the fabric. You can't roll out the way you normally would. But, also if you want to compete, illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Are the dojo police going to storm you here? Probably not. We might tap and be like, hey, don't be a dick.
Yeah.
But, that's also because a lot of us have jobs we have to get to on Tuesday.
Right.
So you can't blow my knee out on a Monday.
Yeah. Exactly, dude.
Or my shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I always kind of go back and forth sometimes with my thinking on what people should and shouldn't do in their training.
Yeah.
There's always the philosophy of is everything on board and always you just train it so that way you learn it. I mean, I'm not into heel hooks to your point with the gi on too much friction.
Yeah,
there.
I know what you're getting at though.
But the question is like, all right, well, do you allow certain techniques as a white belt? Because here's the thing: sometimes it's not whether or not it's safe; it's just whether or not the person is safe to do it.
I was gonna say
It's like
for
a case
me,
by case basis.
Yes, it's very much. I actually, and I swear, if you ask me this, like after I've been a black belt for 10 years or 20 years, my answer, like I'll look back on this and be like,
Oh, yes,
and maybe I'm not. I don't know. But right now, where I stand is it's not so much the belt color; it's the maturity of the individual.
right,
Because there are some people that just are so spastic they don't know how to calm down,
right,
and then there's people that are so calm they don't know how to tighten up. And so there's a little bit of there's an ebb and a flow where like if they are able to get into a position and hold it, do you let a set of rules that they may or may not ever compete under dictate how good of a grappler they can be? And I don't necessarily think that you should. But if you plan on competing, you do need to train within the rules of the organization or the body that you want to compete under. So at that point, it's like, well, do you train habits that are going to lead to an eventual disqualification or put you in a compromised position where you can't do that at this level because now it does matter?
right.
So it's like, do you build that up now? Or, I go back and forth on that. And that's why I'm like, I think people should just get a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
But you got to take it slow. You got to, and again, you got to be patient with it. So
yeah,
I think that's where, a lot of us just associate, and it is a stereotype in a way. White belts are, hey, you don't really know much. Your job is to learn. Your job is to just digest information. Your job is to ask questions. Your job is to just trust the process and get to that next level. And then when we get to the blue belt, it's like, all right, now they've earned a little maturity, right? You can visibly see just with the belt, but you also see what they're doing with other people, how they interact. And I would argue most blue belts are not nearly as spastic and crazy as they were when they're white belts. At least, God, I hope so. And then my purple belt and brown belt, obviously, there's a little bit more maturity there. And, when I get to the next level, I'll be able to speak on that. But from what I've seen so far, it's like, I really don't think it's the belt level dictating it. I think there is just a innate maturity. But I think the belt level does also give you a visual representation of how many years and reps of experience you've put in to say, yeah, your words carry a little more weight than the guy that just showed up. Like it would be no different than being a CEO of a corporate. Like if I started a Tesla tomorrow, do you think Elon Musk is going to take my advice on what they should do with the new Roadster that's still not on the market? Like, hey man, I think I know how we can get this thing to market. You're the intern. You just got here. Like you didn't even get my coffee order right. How are you going to help me with this?
Right.
Versus the CFO who's been there for 12 years going, I got a crazy idea. Go for it, Bob. Like it does matter. But yeah, I don't like the idea of letting rules dictate how someone develops.
Yeah.
To a point.
Yeah. It's just the thing with, I feel like most people, almost everybody goes through the same cycle.
Yeah.
Almost all white belts are spazzes.
Oh yeah.
For one reason or another. It's training the mind to look at jiu-jitsu differently. And this is something I've been realizing and thinking about more and more as of late, where whenever I roll with a lot of, white or blue belts, they're always really worried about what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I'm in their head and they're like, "Oh my God, what is he seeing? What is he setting up?" And you just build this whole story in your head about this shit that I'm doing that I'm not doing.
Yeah.
And I was talking to these guys, I'm like, "All right, listen, whenever I'm rolling with you, if I'm on bottom, I'm probably only trying to either sweep you.
Yeah.
If you do something really bad or something, yeah, maybe I'll put you in a submission or something. But I'm pretty much just trying to sweep you, or I'm not going to let you pass my guard. I'm just trying to maintain my guard. That's it.
Yeah.
If I'm on top, if I've swept you, I'm on top, all I'm really trying to do is just pass your guard.
Yeah.
Half the time, I'm not even searching for submission for you. I'm just passing your guard and then maintaining positions, putting you in uncomfortable spots through maintaining the position. And then don't overthink it is what I'm telling them. Like, that's all I'm doing. You think I'm doing a million things, like that's it. So whenever, as I'm explaining this to these guys, and as I'm thinking about it, it's kind of shifting the way I'm looking at jiu-jitsu, in that I'm wondering, because you always hear position before submission, but we all get into jiu-jitsu for the submission part.
Sure.
As a white belt,
that's like the KO. Right?
Dude. As a white belt, it feels good. You're searching for the win. You're searching for the submission, which is why people get hurt, right? You're always trying to force shit.
I agree. 100%.
You want that win, right? When you're a spaz and you're trying to do things, you hurt people because you're trying to get the win. So it's weird because it's how do you get somebody to shift their thought process from the win and the submission, because that's why we all get into jiu-jitsu, is for that submission, because that's what it's known for. How do you shift them to understand that the position really is the most important, and by owning that fucking position, you're going to open up every submission. You know what I'm saying?
I actually, going back to the Hoyler workshop, it was interesting whenever he would describe certain submissions, he would go, okay, let's elaborate this position here. And it was and I don't know if that was just just like English as a second language, like everything is, let's look at this position. Let's look at this position. But it does, like when you hear, because I've heard other Brazilians do that too. It is interesting when you look at it like, okay, it is the position, like the submission is its own position in and of itself.
Yeah.
There are like even fine, like let's say you have what they call that spiderweb position in 10th Planet, where you got the leg hooked and you have an arm bar locked in, but they have their hands together. Okay, well, that is a position. You're this close to the submission, but you're like 95% of the way. You got 5%, you can still screw up. And it can be a big bomb, too.
Yeah, so how do we finish this?
Yeah, so how do you go from 95 to 96 and then get the other 4% after that to get the, that's the interesting part of the game. But you're right. I mean, so many spazzes, they just focus on, I got to get this, and, like, you miss 15 other opportunities.
Yeah. Well, if you control the position, the finish will come, and you can take your time. Yeah. Right. When you're so worried about the finish, then you create space, or you fall off, or you'll allow space for the person to escape. What say it is that spiderweb position. Now they just got their elbow past the midline, and now you just lost it because you're so focused on the finish. You weren't focused on actually owning and controlling this position.
Yeah, I will say, Jiu-Jitsu helped me a lot with sales too, because like they're both very unique in the sense of you will always lose more than you win. I mean, how many times have you been tapped out in the mats over the years?
A lot.
Yeah, but you remember when you win, because it happens so few far between. Like, that's kind of the rarity. You might remember, man, that guy tapped me with something really cool.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, it was that for sure, right?
Yeah.
And then as you go on, it kind of shifts.
Yeah, it does shift a lot, but I mean, still, like, if you think of like the overall win-loss record, you put a lot of L's up before you start putting any W's.
Yeah.
And then even then, you kind of shift to like, okay, I'm not going to get my guard passed today.
Yeah.
And you might get that happening like 3 times instead of 10, but you got 7 wins.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, once you get to a higher level, a lot
whatever,
of the wins, it's not the submissions.
Exactly.
Right? You're not looking for this. It's, I had a good day of rolling, and I'm
Yeah.
not counting how many submissions I got. You know,
I used to count it with like upper belts. Like it was like I would almost look at the clock and be like, all right, we got 5 minutes. I want to see how long. I know what this guy's going to do. I want to see how I can stop this.
yeah.
And I want to see how I can negate that game for as long as I can.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, getting in the position of holding it. Mine was keeping him in this state of like, I don't know. It's awkward. I don't know what else to do.
Mm-hmm.
If I can get you into that state, that was a win for me.
Yeah.
And then I would probably get swept and submitted, whatever. But it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I did that for 4 minutes today.
Yeah.
Last week was 3.
Yeah. It's like if I'm going against a really good dude, it's like, all right, well, did they pass my guard today?
Yes.
Or if it's a guy who's for sure going to pass my guard, was it 4 minutes or was it 3 minutes until he passed my guard today?
It's those incremental wins I think people often like forget. Like there was a couple weeks ago, we had this kid who he wanted to work, and I'm trying to remember the position exactly, but it was like, if you think of like the knee shield, like the half guard knee shield, right?
Mhm.
He wanted to do a straight ankle lock on the top leg. And I'm like, okay, well, there's not really a comfortable way to get there without reaping the knee, because you basically have to fall and let the top leg be on top, or let the attacked leg be on top.
Mm-hmm.
Well, by most metrics, you'd have to reap the knee in order to get that. And so he's like, but I feel like there's a way to get there. And that's why I'm like,
You're knee shielding, and he wants to attack that knee shield
he wants
leg?
to hit the shielded leg, yeah. Not the leg on bottom that's hooking on the half guard, but the shield.
Yeah.
It's
He-
like,
as a guy on top?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. You can do that.
You could do that, but again, you'd have to like fall. Eventually, you'd have to fall to the side where the top leg
Yeah,
is
because
up.
your knee, let's say you're knee shielding me here, right? I'd come over the top, and then I'd fall down. Yeah, and you
Yeah.
have to. Yeah, you just have to make sure you put that heel in the hip as opposed to coming across and reaping.
Well, the thing is, like, if it's on top though, it would reap because it create that downward pressure on the knee. So you have to get it to the other side for the straight ankle lock. Now, if you're a brown belt, you can just reach back and toe hold them. You don't have to care.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like in the gi, you can't do this. But if it's no gi, well, now the rules change a little bit because you got a heel hook right there.
Yeah, because you're saying technically that position, right? Because that leg is on top.
Yes.
You can't do that like an IBJJF.
I don't think you can. No, I'm like 90% confident you can't.
No, because I don't. Is that a reap though?
Yeah, I think it would be a reap.
Is the position what makes it a reap? Because I thought what makes it a reap is if your leg came across and over.
Well, to lock it in the way
Now
he
you
was
can't-
asking.
Now you can't finish it in that point, right? You would have to come back to the other side, but you could still put it in there and it not be illegal, right?
I
Because
think
if you're
you
not
could start it,
applying
but if you start getting that leg to come over and you start the squeeze, I believe that's where the reap happens.
well, if
So
I come over and I put my heel in the hip, right?
Right.
Because a reap is whenever I cross the hip line.
I think the reap is technically whatever makes the knee buckle in. At least that's my understanding of it. I have to double check that.
Yeah.
But I guess where I'm going with this is like the whole time he's describing this to me, my answer was, if you can attack the leg there, why don't you just clear the knee shield and just pass the guard?
Yeah. Why you? Yeah.
You know, you're and I'm like, I sit there, I'm listening to him for like a good 5-10 minutes. I'm like, I hear what you're saying, bud, but I feel like you're adding 5 steps to something that we solved in 2.
Yeah.
And so there's 7 steps on the board when you had 2. Why are we adding all this? Again, that's too much salt and spice.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? And so it was just, I don't know, I just feel it's there. And I said, okay, do you feel it's there because you want it to be there, or have you seen this done? And once I realized he'd never seen it done, he was just trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm like, okay, go back and trust the process. Because if you learn how to because the thing I brought up to him was like, okay, do it to me. And we drilled it a few times, and I kept coming up 2 points.
Right.
And now it's a sweep.
You
And
just,
now-
yeah.
And so now it's not only a sweep. Now you're in a really shitty single leg X entanglement. I'm just going to pass.
Right.
And so when I started dissecting this to him, he just wasn't like, I mean, I could tell he was getting frustrated. I was too, a little bit too. But it was like, the answer is you haven't had enough of a process to trust in to start coming back and reinventing the wheel. You just got here, man. Trust it and just go with.
He's just searching for the submission.
Yeah. And again, he was looking for the submission, not realizing what position he's in.
Yeah, and the ultimate objective there should be to pass the guard.
Yes. And I'm like, if you can clear the shield, done. And if you can't, just back up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just the excitement of trying to learn it all.
Yes.
I had a guy. I'm teaching these small groups right now, and he messaged me and sent me a video of a guy finishing wrist locks. This black belt, and he asked me if we could teach it. I'm like, man, I don't have any intention of teaching that.
Yeah.
He's like, oh well, not for us to like use on each other. It's
Well, then why would we do it?
like we don't. I don't have any intention. Like there's a lot. If that's the last 5% of jujitsu, like
Did you ever see the memes where after Danaher had that thing on Joe Rogan, why would you ignore 50% of the human body?
Yeah.
And then everyone had those memes with wrist locks. Why would you ignore 0.5% of the human body?
Right.
I thought
yeah,
it just reminded me of that.
This guy who's finishing wrist locks in this video, I'm saying, okay, well, he put a guy in a Kimura position. He put a guy in this. He's like, you need to understand all these other fundamental. There's so much more jujitsu that's important and useful that you have to learn. Mm-hmm. Before you even think about wrist locks.
Yeah.
And like that's the plus and minus of YouTube.
Dude, if that is for real. I remember there was a dude that was like, hey, I saw this video. This guy had this really unique grip, and he doesn't grip like the Bravo choke the way you do. And like, I'm just curious why. And I'm like, I don't know. Did the guy have a black belt? Because automatically I'd yield to whatever he does. Like, I'm not there. He probably has some insight. And then I come to find out he was talking about Jean-Jacques Machado. I'm like, well, first off, the dude doesn't have a full hand on one side.
He's missing 3 fingers.
Yeah, he's missing three fingers on one side. So, of course, he's going to grip it different.
Yeah.
So let's start with that fundamental fact.
Yeah, and there's just a lot of fluctuation in jiu-jitsu. There's no one right way to do these things.
Yeah. I love those things. Well, first off, he doesn't have a hand.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That would explain the grip issue. Now, the rest of it, I mean, it's virtually the same.
Yeah.
But past that, yeah, that's why.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I love the fact that YouTube University has blown up so much with that because it's like I think it does advance the game in the sense of like you'll see a lot of legit positions out there and a lot of legit concepts, especially from like BJJ Fanatics. All these high level guys are going there and putting their game out.
Yeah.
And I've noticed I feel like more and more you're seeing people put out what they legit do in tournaments. They're not doing like the flashy seminar stuff that only works in seminars.
It's like this is what I do.
And you can see footage of them hitting that same sweep 4, 5, 10, 12 times. Mm-hmm. And like, this is how I do this, and this is why I base my reactions. This is my system on once I get to the position.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But at the same time, you get a lot of the Bullshido guys that come out of the woodworks and they're like, oh, here's a wrist lock that'll fend off like 14 ninjas. And
those
it's like,
guys.
come on, man.
Yeah, watch
Is the Dim Moxilla thing?
What is that?
The death touch that Jean-Claude Van Damme had in Kickboxer?
Fuck, no,
I feel like
no one believes
I
that
love
shit.
that. Nope. No one cares.
Some people do.
Did you ever see, this is years and years ago, did you ever see the one guy who was supposed to be like the expert in this technique? He went to a jiu-jitsu academy in Chicago, and it just so happened it was Carlson Gracie's academy.
Shit beat him, didn't he?
No, the guy that he tried to test it out on was Stefan Bonner.
Yeah.
And Stefan is clearly in the thing going, why is this guy touching me? Like, he just has to look like,
that's funny. I forgot Stefan Bonner's from Chicago, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Again, Carlson black belt.
God damn.
And that was Carlson, not Junior. That was the OG.
Yeah. He has a huge association.
He really does. I love the stories of some of those old Gracies, too. Carlson was one of those dudes. I always wish I would have met him.
Yeah.
Because he seemed like such a hilarious dude. I heard this story, and I don't remember who I heard it from, but it was like, you know, you have like the self-defense curriculum, like, oh, in the book, whenever the guy grips your collared hair, and Carlson just smacked him in the, what the hell was that for? He goes, what? He grabs me. I punch him.
Is that what he did?
Yeah, he just smacked the dude right between the forehead. He goes, what?
Like, this is it.
And everyone's like, why would you hit him? He's like, you signed the waiver, right?
Yeah, well, old school jiu-jitsu, a lot of strikes were incorporated.
That's the thing.
Like,
people forget about that.
Yeah,
it's not all finesse, and the Aikido aspects of it are not always there. Like, when shit gets real, yeah, you got elbows, you got fists, you got knees.
Yeah.
Get out of dodge. Get safe.
There's strikes that are involved for sure.
Yes.
That's a lot. That's one of the big things that I took away from Henry Akins, because he's really old school, right? It's that whole Valley Tudo really approach. It's all about fighting as well. So he talks about strikes and different things, and it's an important thing to keep in mind because that's a big why behind a lot of the things.
Yeah.
Right. It's like I'm going to control someone's arm if they're trying to come over for a punch. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why if I'm overhooking here, I can then block this arm. I'm controlling posture. Like, there's reasons why you do these things, even from a self-defense standpoint, from just blocking strikes, because strikes are a part of the spectrum.
I think people get so fundamentally fixated on the idea that self-defense and MMA and gi and no gi are all different styles, and they have different approaches for sure.
Yeah.
But at the core, like, you know, if you watch guys, like when they get, like, you know, look at judoka, right?
Yeah.
When they grip the gi, as they're grip fighting, fundamentally, it's no different than if like a guy grabbed your collar and you don't pop it off and back him up.
Yeah.
You know, you don't always have to throw a strike. You can
Yeah.
get a little distance and then kind of gauge what's next.
Yeah.
And the concepts are there. Like, I mean, if you look at like even like the wrist grabs and like how to get away from that stuff, grab the sleeve. It's the same mechanic.
Right.
And so it's very interesting. People are like, oh, this doesn't work. That's literally all you're doing. You just have points and time limits now instead of like, well, not.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, yeah, the approach changes because there are rules. You can't elbow a dude in a tournament.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, not blatantly. I
Not
mean,
blatantly.
It happens.
Yeah, when you start adding like sport and rules to it, as far as you start looking at sport jiu-jitsu, I think that changes certain things. It opens up possibilities that maybe you wouldn't do in certain contexts, but it's still all jiu-jitsu.
It is, and that's the thing. I've literally gotten to a point now. I am just absolutely in love with all aspects of it.
Yeah.
Like, I need to get more no-gi stuff going because I am terrible at it. But it's also I don't train a whole lot of no-gi because most time like there's only a couple nights I really have opportunities to go do it.
Yeah.
And like on those nights, like I've kind of allocated that to family time. So
Yeah.
for me to do no-gi, I'd have to like I don't want to say go to a different school or do it. I could do it at my school. It's just I have to move things and allocate that time differently.
Yeah.
Which means I have to get up at like 7 a.m. and roll, which I don't.
Wake up early, bitch.
I mean, I need to. Right now, I need to get my shoulder healthy. That's the first.
That's
priority.
number one.
Yeah,
That's number one.
and that's incentive to get my ass back on that rower.
Take care of yourself, Mike.
I got to, man. And again, this is like the first injury I've had, like I would say nasty injury, but really the first injury I've had in like a couple years. So like I've had like little neck sprains and issues here and there, but as far as like injury, this was pretty gnarly. This was a fluke.
You think it's torn?
I don't think it's torn. It happened on Monday, so starting like I figured tomorrow will be a week. I'm gonna kind of. I mean, I've been doing a lot of mobility work, stretching, rehab, lacrosse ball. The massage gun has been a really big help too. And so I'm gonna keep up with that and see how it is at the end of this next week. And if it doesn't seem significantly better to where I can start doing really light range of motion loading of any kind, I'll probably go get like some imaging done and probably start scheduling some stuff for the PT.
Yeah.
Just because at that point it's like, look, if there is some tear reaction in there, let it heal up, and if I need surgery, like I'm gonna be really pissed. But I've heard so many people having shoulder issues and not getting surgery. Just sometimes they just heal.
Just take the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And so if I can get to that point, then great.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't know.
dude, I hope it works out.
Me too. I don't know. Who do you know has stem cells?
You have to go to Blue Tail.
Blue tail?
Yeah. I think, but they do it where they take the stem cells from you. They take it from your hip.
Yeah. Okay.
And then they centrifuge it and pull out the stem cells. So it's like it's a plus and minus, right? Because it's your stem cells, so they should take, but they're also your stem cells. So whatever age you are, they're older stem cells. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
It's
that's
youthful, but
So you remember that guy Sam Ridgway?
yeah,
He talked a lot about, was it the telomeres on a cell that like kind of like the longer they are, the younger you are, or something like that?
simply, yeah, that's the idea. I don't know if it's like, because I was actually talking to Jacob Scherer about that, and like that's how I believed it too. It's like the length indicates how long you'll live.
Yeah.
I think it indicates the health of the telomere, but I don't know if that's a direct indicator of how long you will live, if that makes sense.
So I've often wondered, like, if you were to do something where you kind of increase that longevity, because I've heard people where they can actually start to do, not by much, but you can increase the longevity of an individual and increase their telomere length with like different therapies, or I'm sure there's drugs out there that do stuff too. But it kind of makes me wonder with that same concept of stem cells, if you apply that and then go do the stem cell therapy, would that be better?
I don't know.
Or am I just like talking on my like that's one of those things where the bro science sounds like it checks out, but I'm sure there's a clinician that's going. No.
So what would you apply before the stem cells?
I don't. That's what I'm saying. Like I don't know like a lot about it. I've only talked to Sam in passing about it.
Just like doing like NAD or something, like a
Yeah,
NAD drip or something.
Maybe something like that. Like over time, with like if that increases the longevity of the telomere.
like the health of your cells.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I
then
mean,
do
I would assume if you had healthier cells, then you would have stem cells as well,
Yeah.
right?
I think it's 60. I'm just gonna do all the drugs.
Do it
I'm
all.
gonna be stupid clean with everything up until then.
Why
And
60? Why not sooner?
It just seems like a fun number.
How are you not 40 something?
I'm 37. That's why I shaved the beard. I
Oh,
gained 11 years
I thought
back.
you were like 43.
No, I'm
I
37.
don't mean to like age you.
That's fine. It's fine.
I don't ever know how old anybody is anymore.
I think once you hit like 35, just everybody's in a certain bracket of like 35 to 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, or 43. I think is a good range.
I don't ever fuck. I feel bad now, Mike.
No,
'cause I
don't
just
feel
made
bad at
you-
all. It's
I was
fine.
like, oh fuck, you You look like shit, bro. No.
That's why I shaved.
No, I just never know how old anybody is. But I had a fucking point. What was my point with that? I don't remember.
Oh, why 60?
Oh yeah, why 60? I was gonna say like why not start sooner?
I think part of it is just like
Oh no, that's my point. I thought if you're in your early 40s, that's probably whenever I'll start. Is what I'm saying. Like in my early 40s. So I was like, why not start fucking now, bro?
I don't know. Give it a couple years. I might change my opinion.
Yeah, you're in your late 30s. Don't do it now.
Yeah, I think it's one of those like I definitely want to get.
60s.
I like the idea of like get as healthy as you can now.
Yeah.
And I think for some reason in my head like 60 was one of those ages. I'm like, screw it. I figure by then I'll have grandkids. I'll retire or have that idea of like, hey, this is how things are gonna go, and then I'm just gonna be like yoked grandpa.
Well, I think your 40s is whenever your levels start dropping gradually every year. So yeah. So that's why I'm like early 40s, bro.
I might be calling that guy.
So, Mike, dude, we've been going for an hour or 2.5 hours.
Oh, has it been that long already?
Yeah.
Man, we're good about that. We get going.
I know, and the time just fucking flies.
One of these times we got to get like the two of us and let us both interview somebody.
Like who?
I don't know. Just throw somebody on the board. Like, hey, you want to come talk to this dude for a couple hours? Fuck yeah, let's do it.
Let's see, dude. All right, man. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
All right, my dude. Bye, everybody.
Bye.